Today and good afternoon. Thank you everyone for being here this afternoon. Today's date is July 24th, 2025. This afternoon's oversight hearing on the Guam International Airport Authority, held by the Committee on Transportation, Tourism, Customs, Utilities, Federal and Foreign Affairs, is called to order. It is now exactly 2 p.m. Some housekeeping matters that I will briefly discuss so we can get right to work. The first notice for this oversight hearing was disseminated to all senators and media outlets on July 16, 2025, with a second notice disseminated on July 22nd, 2025. These hearing notices, accompanied by an agenda, were also made available to all local media, the Guam Legislature's website, our legislative calendar, and the Government of Guam Public Notice Portal. Today we will hear from the Guam International Airport Authority on accountability of airport operations and finances, airport tourism alignment, visitor projections, air service development, updates on federal partnerships, compliance, and grants. At this time, I would like to welcome my colleagues who are here joining us this afternoon. Of course, I'd like to welcome the co-vice chair of the committee, Senator Chris Duenas. Thank you for being here, Sarah. We also have Senator Sean Gumatauta, thank you, Sarah, and Vice Speaker Tony Ada, also a committee member, and Senator Vince Borja, committee member as well, and Senator Therese Terlahi. Thank you for being with us this afternoon, and I'm sure colleagues will be coming in and out of the prospective meetings. But thank you for being here this afternoon. Before I begin, I would like to remind everybody in attendance of the Legislature and Guahan's general rules of conduct. Individuals testifying shall first be recognized by the chairperson before speaking and shall state their full name for the record. Questions and testimony shall be confined to the substance or nature of today's agenda. Personal inferences to character or motive of any senator or individual testifying is not permitted. Pursuant to Section 1107 of the 38th Guam Legislative Standing Rules, a chairperson may order the removal from a hearing of the committee or a subcommittee of any person who is not a member of the Institute and Guahan and who fails to observe proper decorum. Any violation of this general rule of conduct will result in immediate removal from this public hearing room. With that, I now call the Sergeant at Arms, or I'm sorry, oh, you're here already, Kanata. Please come to the table and bring are all these folks going to testify? How about the folks behind?
Yes, sir.
Is anybody? We may have some, depending on the questioning, we may have some of the folks that may be sitting there may testify depending on the subject matter
yes,
that is asked about. And so I would call on the Sergeant at Arms to maybe just have everybody sworn in.
Yes, sir.
So in case, again, okay? So Sergeant at Arms, can you maybe do that, please? Thank you.
If you can please stand and raise your right hand.
We'll do it for everybody who may be seated there as well, who may be called to testify, depending on the subject. Okay, that's it. Go ahead.
Under penalty of perjury, do you affirm that any and all information you provide today, whether it be verbally, electronically, and in writing, be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Okay, Mr. Chair, under oath, you may proceed.
Thank you, Sergeant at Arms. Before we proceed, I just want to state to my colleagues, our GIAA stakeholders and members of the community, thank you all for joining us this afternoon, both in person and listening online or watching us on the legislative channel. For this important oversight hearing of the Committee on Transportation, Tourism, Customs, Utilities, Federal and Foreign Affairs. As chairman of the committee, it is my responsibility to ensure that the agencies and entities under our purview are operating with transparency, accountability, and a shared commitment of serving the people of Guam. Today, our focus on the Guam International Airport Authority, a critical hub that connects our island to the rest of the world and serves as a front door to Guam's tourism industry, a pillar of our economy. This oversight hearing will provide an opportunity to examine the airport's financial management and operations, progress on infrastructure and capital improvement projects, efforts in expanding airline services, and its alignment with our broader tourism goals. We will also take a close look at issues of safety, security, and emergency preparedness, as well as the concerns of tenants and concessionaires who rely on a well-functioning airport to sustain their businesses. Furthermore, we seek clarity on the recent downgrade of our airport's financial outlook, federal grants, project timelines, and compliance with federal mandates. Our goal is not only to understand the current state of our airport, but to work collaboratively toward enhancing its efficiency, accountability, and capacity to support Guam's growth. We also welcome open, honest dialogue, and we thank all of you that are here today for participating and in preparing for that. At this point, I'd like to acknowledge again the General Manager, and maybe you can introduce yourself as well as the team that you have assembled today. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Senator Lujan, but I do have my boss here, our Chairman of the Board, Mr. Brian Bamba, to my left. To his left is Dr. Ricky Hernandez, our Deputy Executive Manager. To his left is Mr. Frank Santos, our Airport Consultant. And to his left is our Comptroller, Daphne Shimizu. To my right is our Air Terminal Manager, Mr. Juan Regis. And then to his right is our Chief of Police, Chief Vince Napati.
Thank you, Senator JQ. We understand you have a presentation to make for us as well, and we'll start off with that.
That's correct, Senator. I would like our chairman first to lead off, and then I'll take over from there, and then with our subject matter experts that are here on to give the presentation.
Thank you. Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Chairman, Senator Lujan, Co-Vice Chair, Senator Duenas, Vice Speaker Ada, and members of the Committee on Transportation, Tourism, Customs, Utilities, and Federal and Foreign Affairs. Hafide, my name is Brian Bamba, Chairman of the Board of Directors of the AB Wanpad Guam International Airport Authority. I'd like to note also the presence of my fellow board members, Vice Chair Big Salty, Director Doyan Marato, and Director Rosie Tanetongo, who actually joins us online. We are responsible for developing and guiding policy that enables the efficient and safe operations of Guam's only commercial airport, the primary conduit for economic activity on our island, as well as the hub for transshipment activity throughout Micronesia. Today you will hear from subject matter experts led by on the day-to-day operations and management of the airport, led by Executive Manager John Kanata, who has also introduced the members of his team. The board has had the pleasure of working alongside management during the most difficult years of Guam's aviation and tourism industries. We are committed to continuous improvement in the travel experience, leveraging airport assets for economic diversification, and we look forward to the full recovery of tourism arrivals to the island. I'd like to thank you for the opportunity to appear before you today, and we're here to support management and answer relevant questions that you may have. Situs Masi.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, and Hafide, Senator Lujan. I'm John Kanata, the Airport Executive Manager for the Guam International Airport Authority. Thank you again, Senator Lujan, Oversight Chairman, and members of the Committee on Transportation, Tourism, Customs, Utilities, and Federal and Foreign Affairs. Thank you again, Senator Chris Duenas, the Vice Chair, Senator Sean Gumatato, Committee Member, Senator Vince Borja, Senator Tony Ada, and of course, Senator Therese Terlai. The Guam International Airport Authority, and I see Senator Shelley Cowell coming in. Thank you again, ma'am, for being here. The Guam International Airport Authority appears before you today for an oversight hearing on airport issues that will address accountability in airport operations and finance, airport tourism alignment, visitor projections, and air service development, and updates on federal partnerships and compliance and grants. The Board of Management of the Airport Authority are committed to ensuring the safe, efficient, and sustainable operations as stewards of Guam's only commercial airport. Key initiatives have been undertaken in the areas of airport finance, safety and security, capital improvement projects. We have also completed our master plan update and land use plan that will guide our proposed development. We look forward to presenting updates on these critical airport issues, transparent information exchange, and productive discussions in today's hearing. I'd like to acknowledge our board members and introduce my team that are here today. And I know I did that earlier, but I would like to do it again. And some of the board members that may be behind me, let me just introduce. So I have our chairman of the board, Chairman Brian Bamba. I see our board of director, Doyan Morato. And okay, to my left is my deputy executive manager, Dr. Ricky Hernandez. To his left also is Mr. Frank Santos, our airport consultant, and then our comptroller, Daphne Shimizu. I have also our air terminal managers in charge of all operations up at the airport, Mr. Juan Regis, and then our airport chief of police, Chief Vince Napati. If you got the briefing slides, if we can get it up. So I'll be going over, and we can go to the next slide. The agenda, we'll go over the accountability of airport operations and finances, and what on the agenda items that we had, there's some that we combined so we can, because it's so close, we combine some of the categories. So in our menu or in our agenda, we're going to be going over airport finances update, and that will be given by our comptroller, Daphne Shimizu. Our federal grant and capital improvement project updates, and that will be reported by Mr. Frank Santos. Our airline service expansion and tourism impacts, that will be reported by our deputy executive manager, Mr. Ricky Hernandez. Our airport security updates will be given by our chief of police, Chief Vince Napati. Our airport operations, safety and emergency preparedness will be given by our air terminal manager, Mr. Juan Regis. And then our tenant and concession updates by our deputy executive manager again. And then, of course, to conclude it, to airport tourism alignment and air service development, and that will be given by our deputy executive manager. Next slide. At this time, I would like to call on Ms. Daphne Shimizu to give our airport finances update.
Have a day, and thank you, Mr. EM. Thank you so much, Mr. Chair, Mr. Vice Chair, Mr. Vice Speaker Etta, and honorable members of the Committee on Transportation. Again, I'm Daphne Mansafit-Shimizu, and I'm here to go over the airport finances and to provide an update on that. If you'll notice, there are three basic areas that we'll be focusing on in terms of airport finances. We'll be going through our FY 2019 to FY 2024, our actual audited revenues and enplanements. We'll be providing an update on our credit rating, and we'll also be discussing our prior year aviation fuel tax. Next slide, please. So on this slide, what you see here, the blue line that you see toward the top portion of the page represents our audited revenues from fiscal year 2019 to 2024. And as you know, fiscal year 2019 was the last year prior to us, going through COVID. And so in that year, if you look at the green bars represent what are called enplanements. And enplaned passengers or enplanements basically are departing passengers. And we utilize and track enplanements because enplaned passengers are the number of enplaned passengers that we have are a very good indication as to the financial health of the airport. Right, so the enplaned passengers or departing passengers are the ones that actually, when there are a lot of departing passengers, there's going to be a lot of concession activity, right? Because they're the ones that are in the terminal that are purchasing food and beverages. They're the ones purchasing merchandise. And so again, we utilize departing passengers or enplaned passengers again as something that we monitor very closely and as again a guide to the health of our financial health of the airport. And if you'll notice, in FY 2019, we had almost 1.9 million enplanements or enplaned passengers, and at that time, our revenues were about $87.6 million. And generally speaking, of course, the higher the enplanements, the higher our revenues are going to be, and there is that usual, there's a general, general direct relationship between those two factors or elements. Now, if you'll notice, though, when we hit FY 2020, our number of employments was reduced significantly. As you know, we had half of a year of COVID, so in March 2020, I think it was March 16, 2020, when like the entire island and the entire world basically shut down. And so we had half a year of just really regular activity and then half a year of COVID, and where we really had little to no activity at our airport. In FY 2021, you'll notice that we had less than 125,000 employments. In FY 2022, we saw an increase slightly to 400,000 employments. In FY 2023, we were able to get double that, what we saw in the prior year of 859,000 employments. And in FY 2024, we actually hit a milestone because it was the first year we exceeded 1 million employments since before COVID. And again, that was huge for us. And if you'll go to the next slide, please. So this slide basically is the same slide we saw earlier, with the exception of we wanted to highlight again, the difference or what the relationship, I guess, between our revenues and our employments. And so if the higher the revenue, the higher the employments we have, the higher the revenues we have, right? During those years when we didn't have the employments, then how were we able to pay our expenses, generate revenues, and especially pay our bondholders, our debt service, right? Because that's hugely important. And really, there were three basic, largely there were three basic ways that we were able to do that. Number one, of course, we had to reduce our expenses. And in fact, in 2021 fiscal year, that was probably the year that we had the least amount of expenses. We were able to reduce our expenses, not by half, but pretty close to half. And it was probably the lowest it had been since like 2012. And so we reduced our expenses significantly. We continue to work on expense reductions and making sure that we maintain our expenses. The other thing that happened, of course, during that time, there was a lot of COVID relief that was being provided from the federal government. So we did receive CARES monies, we received CRISA monies, and also some ARP monies to the tune of about $64 million. And so, again, those were extremely helpful as we worked to make sure, again, that we could pay our expenses and pay our debt service. And lastly, of course, as you know, for our airport and for any issuer of bonds, it's really important to make sure that we pay our debt service, right, which is basically our paying off the debt that was issued for the bonds that were issued in order to fund the building of our airport, fund a lot of our capital improvements to the airport, right? And so what we, in FY 2019, our debt service, meaning the payments that we had to pay for our bonds, was in excess of $23 million, almost $24 million. We knew that that was not a sustainable level of debt service for us, and so in the last few years, in order to be able to manage our debt service and our expenses, we actually had initiated and executed some bond transactions. We had done some what's called scoop and toss, where we had pushed off or deferred portions of our bond payments to later years. So knowing that we didn't have the revenues to pay those, like if they were in the 23 million level range in terms of our bond payments, so we were able to reduce our payments in the last few years. So again, in FY 2019, our bond payments our debt service was $23.87 million. In 2020, our debt service was $13.5 million. We were able to reduce it to below $10 million for the next 3 years after that. And then in FY 2024, below $12 million. And so again, we really worked really hard to make sure, again, through these bond transactions, that we're able to meet our debt service requirements, make our payments for our bonds, and also pay our expenses. Next slide, please. And as you did mention, Mr. Chair, we did actually receive an update to our credit rating just recently on July 7th. So right at the beginning of this month, Moody's did actually issue an update to our credit rating. And this is something that I just wanted to share. On an annual basis, we do go through a credit rating. So we do get a credit review annually by Moody's. And in the last year, in FY 2024, our credit rating was affirmed from the prior year. We are Baa2 is the rating. So that is investment grade, meaning we are basically low risk for not being able to pay our expenses and our debts, right? So that's what Baa2 and being investment grade means. In FY 2024, the outlook that was given by Moody's was stable, meaning that the likelihood of us our credit rating changing or changing is low, right? But when we came into 2025, and of course because of the environment that we have been in, not only did we have COVID in 2020, 2021, 2022, in 2023, as we were still recovering from COVID, we had Typhoon Mawar, and more recently we really have been dealing with the issues of economic issues that we're seeing with regards to, in particular, how the strength of the dollar against other foreign economies, right, and how that's impacting our ability to get more tourists to come to Guam. And so again, those have been some of the challenges, and that's really largely why, although Moody's did continue to and affirmed our credit rating as Baa2, they did, though, change our outlook from stable to negative. Wanted to make sure that it's very clear, though, that that has no impact to our debt service payments or the interest rates. And again, we will continue to do our best to maintain our, hold on our expenses, hold the line our expenses, and really look at ways that we're going to be able to continue to pay our debts. And again, because that's the number one thing we have to make sure we do is pay our debts. We have to also, again, make sure that we keep with the requirements of the bond covenants. Next slide, please. And the last item that we wanted to, make sure that we shared with you and was the prior year aviation fuel tax. And as you're aware, this was also discussed at the Special Economic Service, and it was raised by Director Carlson from BBMR. They're always, prior to 2018, aviation fuel tax was 4 cents. Public Law 34-44, which was went into effect on January 2018, increased aviation fuel tax from 4 cents to 8 cents. Now, the 4 cents was considered grandfathered and not, Governor Leon Guerrero was able to get clarification from the FAA that the 4 cents was grandfathered, meaning didn't have to be provided or remitted to the Guam International Airport Authority. However, the additional 4 cents on top, which was the result of Public Law 34-44, is not grandfathered, and those monies that were received by the government of Guam for that additional 4 cents, which is approximately $9.25 million, and that's for years 2018 to 2023, those are what make up the amounts that are due from the government of Guam to the Guam International Airport Authority. And those are what we call prior year AFT, or the AFT arrearages. And that's something that we actually have recorded on our books. Governor Leon Guerrero, of course, she does support the repayment of this amount to the airport. We do know that it is really this body that will have to appropriate the monies for these payments. Now, there was a corrective action plan that was provided to the FAA by the governor with regards to the payment of this AFT. And what was proposed was a 5-year payback period and hopefully no interest. However, the FAA did come back and say that if there was going to be, payment over time, that the interest would actually have to be applied. And we estimate that payments, if they're paid over 5 years, the payments each year will be approximately $2 million on the prior year AFT if it's paid over 5 years. And of course, we do, again, this is the first time we are coming to this body and speaking on this particular item, but we do need your assistance with regards to this matter, and we're hopeful that in the executive budget that you will be discussing and passing in the next month, that this is something that will also be included. And that concludes really the financial portion of this presentation, and so I'll hand it over to our executive manager.
Thank you, Daphne. Next slide, please.
Before you continue, let me just have we'll go down the section of, you know, like finances first. That way we won't be confused with other entities.
Okay,
so
sir.
I'll ask our colleagues whatever questions they may ask or have
All right.
regarding finances. We'll go from there. Okay.
Okay.
Oh, okay. And colleagues, there are no time limits, but we want to try to get out of here by 6 at least. So that being said, be cognizant of the time. I don't want to welcome also my co-vice chair, of course, Senator Shelley Calvo, Senator Sabrina Salas-Maltonati, who's a member of the committee as well, and so Senator Talotaligui, who's joining us as well. Thank you very much, colleagues, for being on this afternoon. Daph, the $9 million, again, I mean, it's a debt, and you're coming to the legislature for inclusion in the FY26 budget. I don't think that's going to be possible at this point. But that being said, it's a debt that we have, and now it's up to the monies that will be taken from the general fund to reimburse the airport, which you should have had in the first place.
Correct,
Is
sir.
that correct?
Yes.
Okay. Do you know what that was it 9 point how much million?
$9,254,000.
Okay. Do you know where that went and what it was used for?
Well, so those monies are aviation fuel tax. I'm thinking that you'll find those in the Special Revenue Fund report that is issued by BBMR. And with regards to those particular monies, I am sorry, I'm not sure
okay.
what the source of those funds
So
is for.
my question is basically, it's monies of the airport that collected fuel tax, but it's not monies that the airport had used for its operations or all that, right? Okay. Had used it all, right?
That's correct.
Your bond rating was downgraded. Do they know about this debt? Oh, yeah, they do, right? I mean, they have to. I mean,
Yes.
The FAA had said if they paid within how many years, you'd be straight up $9 million, but if you go in a payment plan, you're going to have interest on top of that?
Yes.
So if we went on a payment plan, that $9 million would turn into what?
We don't have the exact interest rate. The FAA in their communication with the governor actually referred to an interest rate as of a specific time. We could provide that to you, sir, but we believe, again, because it's $9.25 million, we believe that probably the payment, if it's over 5 years, will likely be around $2 million.
So an additional $2 million will be you're over about 11, close to $12 million.
Correct. Right. Yes.
Correct. The people of Guam will have to shed out of the general fund because it was monies that was used for something else other than airport operations, right? Am I correct in that?
Yes.
Something similar that happened to CQA as well. And it has to be my agency, you said that.
I'm not familiar.
that it was taken from. Anyway, I'm sure my co-chair here will ask more questions about that because he's the chairman on finance and budget. And I just don't see it happening in this budget cycle. But it's
right. What I will share, though, Mr. Chair, if I may, is that it did take some time for the clarification on that additional 4 cents to be provided by the FAA, and so there was some communication. When Governor Leon Grow did come into office, there was some communication with the FAA. However, it just took time for the FAA to come back to respond and to advise on whether or not the 4 cents was grandfathered. Now, in 2023, though, when that clarification was provided, Governor Leon Grow did actually direct the BBMR and DOA directors to be paying the 4 cents, that additional 4 cents that should have been paid to, going prospectively being paid to the airport. And so in terms of the current aviation fuel tax, starting with 10/1/2023, I believe, we began to receive those monies. It's just prior to that, again, in the period where it was not clear whether those were due to the airport, those are the monies that are outstanding.
Well, obviously somebody saw that there was money in there that we can use for something else, and that's what it was. So now the people of Guam will have to incur that cost, which was already paid for already and banked, and somebody saw that there was a bank account, and let's get down. Anyway, and that's a shame. It's a big shame. What does your 2024 audit look like?
So for 2024, we did have an unmodified opinion, meaning it was a clean audit. There were no findings in our financial statement audit. Of course, the last couple of years have been challenging for us. Our expenses have exceeded our revenues, in particular for the last few years, by quite a bit. In FY 2023, we had, if you will, what you kind of call like a net loss. We had a net loss of over $30 million in FY 2023. In FY 2024, that amount was, we still had a net operating loss, but it was in the 19 million range, so we saw a reduction of that. But again, you know, it has been challenging for the airport. But overall, our FY 2024 audit, again, we received an unmodified or clean opinion. We're very happy about that. I think it's a testament to the hard work that our team has been doing to try to make sure that we keep things done properly with regards to our finances. And that's where we stand with our audit.
Well, once you got clarification from the FAA in regards to the fuel tax and the amount that you stated, $9.2 million, and then you were again, and then Moody's came out with their downgrade, although it's still investment grade, and is, you know. How much does that, the clarification and what is owed and monies that should have been in the airport account and not there anymore, how much do you think that played into a downgrade on the standings?
I mean, I think that because the, and I don't know if maybe the deputy wanted to.
May I answer, Senator? Thanks, Senator. Name's Ricky Hernandez, Deputy Executive Manager for the airport. I think as it relates to the credit rating, thankfully they affirmed the rating, and so the technical change to the outlook was just a negative to stable, but there was no technical downgrade. But I do want to mention that with the aviation fuel tax issue, there had been a lot of back and forth communications between the FAA as well as the governor and governor's office as well as the airport, and so there was, COVID really put a long delay on clarifying, you know, if those funds needed to be paid. But because it's a federal requirement and clarification was being sought during that entire time period with requests to see if it could be administratively waived, but those things could not happen. And so as the administration had been waiting for an answer on can this be waived, can it be offset, the remitting of those did not happen until what Daphne mentioned in 2023, when clarification came, when the FAA came to visit Guam, and this is a compliance division visit from the FAA. And so the reason why that number is there is, and it's for a specific time period, is because clarification was sought not only from this administration, but it started in the prior administration, because in 2018, that's when the tax was increased. And so I just wanted to give that timeline. The funds that aviation fuel tax gets put into is a Guam Highway Fund. The legislature would appropriate that every year. And until such clarification was received in 2023, it was unknown as to whether that needed to be paid. And clarification made it very such that there needed to be a corrective action plan. And that corrective action plan included not only prospectively starting to pay aviation fuel tax beginning October 1, 2023, but it also determined, we were going back and forth in determining what do we do with this $9.25 million. And so as we moved on from that, the FAA had come back with an approval with a corrective action plan, and that included either the payment of the full amount without interest, or the payment of it over a period of time through a promissory note. And so we've been working with, and the funding, of course, is dependent, as Daphne mentioned, on a legislative appropriation for that. And so a promissory note, of course, would be payment over time. The FAA did indicate that a 5-year payment period with an indicated interest as of September 30, 2023 would be acceptable as a corrective action plan. But if payment was made up front, of course, then they wouldn't be charging interest. But of course, we're sensitive to the budgetary restraints of course, the government of Guam. But this is something that's been imposed by the FAA for a local tax that had been increased. So just wanted to provide that. As it relates to the credit rating, the credit rating agencies look really more holistically at the airport. And so we did have the $9.25 million accrued in our financial statements. It is a receivable that is due to the airport. And the promissory note, of course, and the indications from the administration, as well as the legislature, because this fiscal year, of course, the remitting of the current year prospective aviation fuel tax has been built into the budget. But we don't think that there is a material impact of this aviation fuel tax on the credit rating, more so that the credit rating was really focused, and the reduction, or I would say the change from stable to negative, was really as a result of looking at the forecast that was previously provided years ago and comparing that to the actual enplanement levels. And because we're at the lower end of that forecast, and they're not seeing the quick return of passenger levels to 2019 levels, that's one of the main issues. It's something that we can't necessarily control at the airport. One of the main reasons why they moved from stable to negative. I will say last year, when we did go for a credit review, and even a little bit after Mawar, they were very concerned. And there was a potential, we were put on credit watch for a potential for a downgrade. But we were able to explain to them that this was a temporary thing. We bounced back quickly from COVID. And I know that our air terminal manager can explain potentially a little bit more about emergency preparedness. But they saw that we bounced back really quickly, that the island bounced back quickly. And so they held off even looking at a downgrade or looking at an outlook change. And they kept us at Baa2, moderate investment grade, and kept our outlook to stable. And so, as time moves on, if the enplanement levels continue to be flat, which we'll talk about in a little bit, then, of course, there may be further action taken. But the relation between the outstanding aviation fuel tax and the credit rating, we don't think there's any real material impact between those two, or relationship between those two.
What I'm trying to get to here is, again, the state that we're in at this point, right? And if this 9.2 continues to go unpaid, as you approach the legislature, I mean, we're in the situation where we're entertaining a BPT rollback, and we're asking all of our committee chairs to look at their respective agencies and see where we can trim. And so that being said, it's not high on the agenda, and this is the first we're hearing of course, of a 9.2 million debt that we owed, or that we owe, and having to replenish that. And I'm telling you at this point, it's not high in a priority to be able to replenish that. So how long do you foresee where this is really going to negatively affect, again, maybe a bond rating or such, if it goes unpaid? Because I can't see with the next couple budget cycles that we can make this a priority to pay. It's something that we haven't planned for.
Yeah, I think we've been in communication, of course, with BBMR. And I know that they've included this in their request as it relates to the arrear. We call them, it's called the arrearage. It's kind of a weird word, but we call it the AFT arrearage. It's kind of an FAA term. But we've been working closely with the administration on it, as specifically on trying to address this compliance requirement and federal requirement from the FAA. So I think it's something that we'll continue to work with your committee on, and hopefully your co-chair, as well as the chair of appropriations. and finance, and we can move forward from there. But
Yeah, I mean,
definitely an outstanding
yeah.
issue, but we'll work with you on it.
Well, restructuring your debt to offset, of course, the declining passenger traffic that we're seeing at this point. I mean, we're seeing up and down. I mean, we're seeing good news of more airlines coming in. But, in regards to expenditures and things like that, it's not stable. It's not something that we can bank on at this point. At this point, let me turn over to my first co-chair, of course, Senator Duenas. Finances, if we can limit it to that, and then we'll get to the other entities.
Mr. Chair, you actually covered it pretty much. I think maybe just a couple of observations. I mean, at least really on the recovery, I think this is what has kind of stabilized, where we're at. So that your trend line right now looks good. Is there any way to adjust your projections, or you're just going to stick with? Would that make a difference, maybe, Ricky, going forward?
Yes. Could I request for clarification on the?
Yeah. So you were mentioning that you're under recovery, and that was probably one of the biggest. And you mentioned that it was benchmarked against your projections. Do you foresee adjusting your projections, or just sticking with what you see outward in terms of, yeah?
Yes. No, thanks for the clarification. Yeah, as it relates to the credit rating, the credit rating agency we've worked with is Moody's, and we've been working with them for obviously a long time, several years, of course. And back before and during COVID, we did provide a forecast as part of one of the bond issuances that we had back in, I believe, 2021. And so that forecast kind of stuck, and so they've been using that forecast as a benchmark, because the speed at which that forecast showed recovery, of course, back then, not knowing what we know now, was a little bit faster, but there was a range. And so because we're at the low range, that's kind of what they're looking at. In terms of asking them if they should adjust their forecast, I think the forecast itself was acceptable to the rating agency and to use moving forward. And so because the benchmark is trying to get back to pre-COVID, I think that's the challenge that we're going to be facing as it relates to credit ratings. But of course, just to clarify, when ratings adjust, whether it's the outlook adjusting from stable to negative or a potential downgrade, our interest rates are fixed. So our debt service remains the same. It only impacts our future potential interest rates for borrowing. And we're talking about basis points here in terms of depending on the maturity dates of different bonds. So that's kind of the risk. If we want to go out for something in the future, then we have to face potentially higher interest rates.
So it sounds like when we get to the subsequent portions of this presentation, where there's really the outlook on the economic opportunities, that's where you look to your turnaround, maybe, yeah? Brian?
Senator, if I could just add, because I think, projections are projections, and we can't control, how many passengers do board planes and arrive on Guam. And rating agencies, typically in the investment environment, they really look to the management and the stability of management and how things are being managed during the most difficult times when you're not hitting your projections, right? And that gives you some indication of the health of the agency or in a business, right? And I think Daphne was kind of modest in her explanations. But if you look at the graph where these blue lines are the gaps, right?
Right.
And, as passenger activity is trending downwards and the gap between your revenues is getting larger, in the middle of that there was a lot of activity that occurred, right? And through a lot of austerity, the board had actually challenged management to reduce expenditures. And we looked at a lot of expenditures, whether we turned off lights, reduced the cost of utilities in the airport, limited the amount of contractual activity that was going on at the airport because there are no passengers. So you really don't need to pick up trash every day. And so things like that I think bode well for the rating agencies, or at least the investors that look at how well the airport's being managed. And you don't see that in the numbers or in the explanation of numbers, but that's really what, you can tell the health of the agency is how it's being run. And the creative, I would call it creative financing that was occurring with the help of previous legislatures to allow for refunding and restructuring, which really gave us a little bit more breathing room, right? And then you had federal monies that kicked in but weren't enough to manage the operation or to meet the obligations of the authority. But what was really the heavy lifting was done by these people at this table. And so I think that goes a long way in the eyes of a rating agency as opposed to a forecast. And so I just want to clarify and give credit to where credit is due.
Sure, Brian, I agree, Chairman, and that's exactly. And policies like when we gave you the flexibility on your vendors and your concessionaires. I noticed, Daphne, you mentioned that in terms of your outbound traffic is where you get your calculation there because it's the real demonstration of economic activity. And so I think that was one of those that we were able to help you with as well, and we were happy to do that. I'm setting this up basically because I think the meat and potatoes this afternoon is going to get to the point where the recovery plan, the continued recovery plan, and the outlook in terms of opportunities. But I congratulate you on that benchmark. On the issue of the fuel tax, and it's an obligation, and we recognize that. I'm not going to give away the total budget plan in this hearing, but I'm going to say the key word to when we open up for our budget in August is going to be, there's going to be a lot of flexibility built in. So, stay tuned. I really think the chief executive, the governor is going to have to really, with what we are able to provide, is going to, the line items may be an item that will be recognized that the exercise of flexibility of the funds might be the key to how you arrive at the revenues. But we'll get there when we get there. But it is recognized as a prior obligation. It's booked. And so you have my commitment to provide at least the opportunity, depending on the number we land on. That's all I have, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Senator. You talked about flexibility. That's why we're all enrolled in yoga classes, because there's going to be a lot of flexibility. Yeah. Senator Shelley, co-vice chair.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Buenas, good afternoon, everyone. At this point, we're early on in our presentation, so I don't really have a lot of questions yet. However, I would like to get more information with regards to the 9.254 million due to the airport for aviation fuel tax arrearages, right? Ms. Daphne, if you don't have the information at the moment, you can go ahead and submit it to us just so we can get more information in this one. I don't think this is a dead-end conversation at the moment right now, but we'd like to get more information put forward. Thank you.
Thank you, and we will work to provide a summary for you, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Senator Calvo. Vice Speaker Etta. Oh, he's not here? Oh, okay. Senator Therese Terlai.
Mr. Chair, thank you for your presentation and welcome to all of you. As to that FAA, the fuel tax, yes, Daphne, if you could provide the communication between the governor and the FAA, the corrective action plan that GIAA has committed to, and I'm assuming one of those documents will include the federal requirements that we're answering to. So this was not known by the governor in January when she prepared her budget. This was only found out recently?
Yeah, the governor has been aware of it because part of the corrective action plan was to start remitting funds as of October 1, 2023. So we've been communicating with BBMAR, and he's brought it up a number of times. At least that's what he's mentioned, especially at this most recent SES. He said he mentioned it. I also know it's been in some prior governor's transmittal letters of the budget to the legislature, and so it's been known. It's just we've had conversations with different senators about it, but we're just saying it's the first time we've been called in and it's come up.
No, but it was not included in her budget, but she knew about it before she submitted her budget, you're saying. So that's why we're having a hard time finding that 9 million, because it's not included in her budget request in January, right? But she knew about it, you're saying October 2023?
Yeah, I understand. From my understanding, it's I know that the BBMR director had mentioned looking for funds for it, right? I think finding out if it's the full $9 million or if it's a promissory note, I think that was kind of the debate on what would be available.
Who would be the entering into that promissory note?
My understanding it'd be the airport and the government of Guam.
The governor?
The government of Guam, yes.
So would we be privy to the terms before that's signed, or that's something you're saying the governor can do on her own?
I won't speak for the governor's office, but I think we've been in communication with them just to make sure that both sides are in agreement with that.
Okay.
And of course, it'd be subject to, sorry, Senator, subject to legislative appropriation, of course.
To pay on the promissory note that was signed, if it's signed. Okay. What about, Ms. Shimizu, you said that the audit in 2023 showed a net loss of how much? Because 2024's was 19 million. What was the 2023 net loss?
It was in excess of 30 million.
Okay. All right. And then if you look at this chart with that shows the blue gaps, or either of them, I guess, can you just explain, you've got revenue in 2022 higher than 2024, and yet the employments were less than half of the 2024. Can you just explain that?
Absolutely. So during the COVID years, in particular 2020, 2021, 2022, it started to really, the federal government really began to cease a lot of the federal aid in 2023. But in those years, we did receive in excess of 60 million, a little bit over 64 million over those years. And so that's what accounts for, again, what we talked about, which is the gap and how we're able to get the revenues up.
Federal aid.
Yes,
All right, thanks. And then when you said you reset the bond payments, for 2020, you went from 23 billion down to 13.5, and then less for 2021 through 2024. Was that the same as the refunding, or this is totally independent of the refunding?
No, so this is part of what we call, right, there's called a refunding. But in the recent year, in FY 2024, we also did what was called a tender. And then in FY 2025, we had actually done what's called a defeasance. So there have been multiple different types of bond tools, I guess, if you will, that we have been utilized, bond restructuring tools that we've been able to utilize so that we can help to reduce our bond payments.
So the tender and the 2025 defeasance, did you say it's called?
Defeasance.
Defeasance. Is that no need for legislative approval?
I believe, my understanding is that the tender was already covered under prior authorization, but the defeasance, because the defeasance did not require legislative authority. The defeasance is basically a retirement of some of the debt, but where we basically prepaid it, so it didn't actually reduce our debt, the amount of debt that we paid. The total debt that we paid, but it helps to reduce what's called the debt, the actual total debt service, because we retired it, so it's taken out of what is considered required. So it helps us to meet our debt service coverage ratio.
Does any of what you did in 2020 through 2024 or 2025 change the overall amount that's due? Like you said, you set it off for future years. You reduced it in the last few years, and does that increase it in future years, or does it affect the total?
Right, and so of course, whenever we were working to do these restructurings, we would work toward making sure that there's some savings, right? And there is required, I think there is a required percentage for savings, and also even there is a requirement that we meet or stay within a certain amount for cost of issuance.
I'm sorry.
Oh, sorry. So there is a requirement that we actually have to meet, I think, at least 2% in terms of savings. And then in terms of cost of issuance or the cost to issue, that we stay within a certain percentage as well. So yes, we actually achieve savings, ma'am.
Overall?
Overall.
In the end? Okay.
Yes.
Thank you. And then just to be absolutely clear, so has any remittal of the liquid fuels tax been made?
Yes, and so since October 2023, we've been receiving those monies. Again, those are prospectively.
Okay.
So the Department of Administration does remit those to the Guam International Airport.
How much?
Approximately, I would like to say it's approximately about 1.6 million per year, maybe about 400,000 a quarter.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Light. Senator Gumatauta.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, and good afternoon to perhaps the one agency that has probably collectively some of the biggest brains in the government of Guam. So I appreciate everyone that's here. I just started in this gig maybe 7 months ago, and we were in the customs budget hearing. We heard about this $9 million, and I didn't think my blood pressure was going to go up today. I thought it was going to be okay up until I heard earlier, and just shocks me that BBMR is going to go again, and I know they're listening, but they go to you all and say, we're looking for funds, when this is money that you guys need to take care of your operations. It's absolutely frustrating. Okay, if you can probably hear it in my voice. And Mr. Chair, this is 2 years. And I'm not going to talk about the management, but from the board, are they listening to anything that you guys are saying to them relative to trying to get them this money? I'm just curious.
Full disclosure, I'm not involved in the actual negotiations.
Well, okay, but Brian, I'll tell you this. The board should be helping the executive management to try to pull this. I mean, absolutely. I've been up there. I'm hearing this, and I'm in disbelief. Is there anything else that they owe you outside of the $9 million for this? Because, I mean, we're about to do a budget, and they just told you no. Is there something else that we don't know yet that you guys might owe you? $1 million here, $2 million, anything?
That's all we know.
Okay, thank God. Okay, because I don't think my blood pressure could go any high, JQ. I'm just frustrated. I know, and I'm trying to, Mr. Chair, because I think that when we were in the customs hearing, I'm sorry, I'm hoping that they're listening now. When they report surpluses and they can't get you the money, this is years in the making. I can't believe it. I mean, your work is padding a surplus. And that's why I'm frustrated, if you can well imagine. Because now, I appreciate the chairman, and he's been telling us, come visit, come do these things, and he's right. But when we hear this a couple weeks ago, publicly, I just want you all to know, this is absolutely frustrating. And I'm hoping that the board, Doyon, you're here, somebody can go talk some sense into the office of the governor, reported surpluses, and you guys are hurting when you need it the most. This is just unacceptable. Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I got plenty for later, so hopefully I'll calm down by then.
Thank you, Senator Gumatauta. Where's Will when we need him? Senator Sabrina Salas-Mastandani. Oh, we got, Vince is here too, right?
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I got to say, share the same sentiments as Senator Gumatauta. Because I was in the hearing when BBMR mentioned this $9 million. And just hearing it now about, this is since 2023. And, this legislature, we get accused of a lot of things about, well, they meet every other month, you're not doing any work. And so, yeah, I'm frustrated not just with what we're hearing about Adelup, but the work that apparently wasn't done in the 37th, and now here we are in the 38th trying to clean up a lot of things. So, like my colleague, I will wait and see what else comes out of today's oversight hearing. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Bree. Senator Vince.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, GIA, for coming down here. I think, for me, I'm just kind of like a solutionist. I know there's, like Senator Salas-Mastandani shared, where the new legislature and we're here to, I think for me, it's, how do we fix a lot of the problems that I guess we inherited, but also looking at how, really the path forward, especially when it comes to financing and the budget of the government. I'm not going to go into what happened or what could have happened. Obviously, the question is why has nothing been done, and we'll wait to see what comes out of that. But at least for myself, we're here to support. Obviously, it's an obligation that needs to be paid. It's either we figure out how to, from these surpluses and find the $9 million and save some money, or we, go on a payment plan and pay more money, which is really what we always hear about. I mean, with GDOE, it was the same thing. Like, we find the money, or do we, pull out money or pay more money to get more money, or to pay off a debt, which is, I think, ridiculous when you look at the budget that we run right now in the government of Guam. So we'll continue to listen. Again, we're here. We're here to support, and thank you again, Mr. Chair, and thank you for coming down here. Thank you for that, Daphne.
Thank you, Senator Vince. Senator Taidui.
Sijus Masi, and good afternoon to my colleagues, and good afternoon to everyone here from the port. Who's running the port right now? Everybody's here. Anyways, yeah?
We run 24/7, ma'am, so we have outstanding
So
employees.
these guys
that
are
have been-
on their off time. I hope you give them some comp time for having to be here, too, if that's the case. Daphne, when you were bringing up the PowerPoint presentation regarding the scale on the second page on signatory, the total revenues, you mentioned something that $13 million is in debt service. Is that correct?
So what I mentioned was that in the year 2020, our debt service payment was $13.57 million.
2020?
Yes.
And today?
So this year in FY 2025, because we were able to do the tender and also we were able to do the defeasance, our debt service for this year is in the $12 million range.
I'm sorry?
$12 million.
$12 million now.
12.5.
Okay, for 2025. Okay, inside, some of your financial revenues and expenditure reports for May of 2025, we're seeing a negative. And we also, I'm trying to understand what the federal cap grants in May of 2025, it's showing at $98,000. However, last year in May of 2024, we're looking at $3.2 million. I mean, there's a huge discrepancy between the two. And looking at your financials right now, you're showing a negative of $2 million right now in May of 2025 versus last year. So where are you guys cutting? I mean, if you're showing a negative, where are you guys going to cut to make up any shortfalls?
Well, I can talk on a little bit of what we've been able to do. I mean, since, in particular, of course, we have been working to help to work on reduction of cost. In this year alone, of course, although the LEAC has been reduced, our utilities is probably one of the larger expenses. We used to pay about $650,000 a month to GPA for our power. We have actually, I think as soon as we began talking about cost reduction, our ATM, who is Mr. Juan Regis, he's sitting at the end of the table, he made it a point to go straight to the ops team and the P&F team. And we started to make sure again that we're implementing some pretty extensive power reduction methods, right? So of course, again, we continue to work to reduce our expenses through that in areas like that. As the chairman had talked about earlier, in the past we had worked on contracts, again, reviewing our contracts. That's something that also our administrative services, our airport services manager has also worked to do, is to review contracts and to reduce certain contract amounts where we can. Again, we cannot control, again, the number of employments that we do have for the most part, right? That's really beyond our control, but we have been working on things that we can control, and again, those are our expenses.
I see. Thank you for that. It was talked about earlier. Of course, everyone's talking about the $9 million that's owed. And, you know, I heard about this over a year ago, about the $9 million. Everyone's saying they just recently heard about it. No, this has been going on for a while. Lester Carlson came in front of us in the last budget bill and told us about this issue, that we needed to come up with funding to pay this debt off. However, it's never been put in any budget bill at all to cover this expense since the governor has known about this. And this has been a while. He's been saying this is over almost 4 years old, you know, that we had to address it and we never did. So now, go ahead, Director.
Yes, ma'am. So, just, you know, since we've been addressing this issue, we have been going back and forth with the FAA on how we're going to pay it. We're going back in, can we not pay any interest? How are we going to repay this back, and what timeline? So all that was going back and forth, and so we got some finality, possibly, I think the first quarter of this year of about March, or Aerodrome? Yeah, April. April is when we got, and that's when we were in Saipan. We were able to meet with the FAA and our ADO and our compliance folks. And so that's when we got a more final guidance from FAA and what they wanted to do and how they were going to charge us for it.
But this has been going on for quite some time. I'm just wondering why the FAA gave you lenience and now they're pushing for this payment now unless they're going to charge us interest. That's what I'm assuming, right? So if we don't get this, we're going to be charged interest. Did they give you an interest amount?
I think, Daphne, maybe you can, but I think it's starting from 2023 as far as the interest, and not went into us back to 2018. So it was starting in 2023 is when that interest was going to be started.
And what is that amount?
In the interest rate, actually, they use specific language as for an interest rate that is as of September 30, 2023, and we could provide you with that specific language, ma'am, because it refers to a certain. It refers to something with regards to the Treasury, at the U.S. Treasury, and
so
certain interest rates that are issued by the U.S. Treasury. So we could provide you with that language, ma'am.
So it sounds to me like it's on a scale, right? A certain kind of scale. It's not like set 10%, 12%, 11 like that. It sounds to me like they're doing it based on the scale, right? And that's why you can't give me a direct number on that one. Okay. So, and when's the finalization of deciding on what kind of lenience, if they're going to allow us to pay $2 million a year, or when's the final deadline where FAA says, okay, this is your first payment plan?
Well, what we know is that they gave us 5 years to
cover
pay
it?
What they agreed with, to give us 5 years to pay it off. Okay. And so going back and forth, the governor says, hey, if we pay it off at one time, will still be charged the interest? And they have said if we pay it off in one time, there'll be no interest. But if we're going to do it in the next 5 years, then the interest will start from 2023, October 1st, 2023, to whenever we pay it off.
Okay, so if we pay it off, we get a discount from 2023 to FY25, right?
Really not a discount, but no interest.
Well, yeah. Technically a discount, because then they're not charging us the interest from 2023 to 2025.
That's correct, ma'am.
Okay. So if we pay it off. Yeah, I'm curious to see what those numbers are. I mean, like many families on Guam can't afford, you know, a full amount up front. They have to go on a payment plan because we can't afford it. And we have to see what I mean, we saw the CRER, and you know that, you know, former senator, what CRER is all about and how it's trailing less than it was last month. You know, so we're in dire need, and we're seeing our special funds also a lot lower. It was, I think, 8 million last month shortfall. Now we're at 10 million in shortfall for special funds. So sometimes we'll have to just bite the bullet, you know, and then have to spread it out so that we can afford it. Because the last thing I hate to see you do is, like some other agencies, they're doing a 10% cut in personnel, cutting people from their jobs. So that's something we don't want to see happen. Other than that, I'm looking forward to, let me see. Okay, other than that, what I was talking about earlier on the finance side, the capital grants gain, do you know? Okay, thank you. Go ahead,
Yeah, thanks, Senator.
Dr. Hernandez.
Yeah, thanks for the question. I think with the without the May 2025 and the May 2024 reports in front of us, we can generally kind of explain the monthly reports that are provided by law that we provide to the legislature and the governor as well. They are snapshots of 1 month in time. And so I think you're specifically talking about the federal capital grants that we get. And so those typically follow the time and when we make a payment on an invoice that is a federally funded project, and when that turns around in terms of a reimbursement, because when we make a payment on an invoice, then we submit that to the federal government, and then we get a reimbursement back in. And so that there's timing differences in when that happened. I can't speak specifically to May 2024, but likely we had a large reimbursement come in for that.
Yeah, May 24 was like 3 million, 3.7 million.
Yeah, so we likely made a large payment on maybe a federal contract, a federal
I see.
construction project.
Right now we're only at 9,000. I think it's 9,000 something. I wrote it down earlier. So yeah, I saw just such a big change. And then of course the negative, at $2 million, we're negative on your financials, your expenditures. So just finding out where you're cutting, I don't think just power alone is going to do it. And thank you for looking into that and finding ways to, to cut areas down. And you're probably going to have to do more than just the power sooner or later. But okay, other than that, I'm looking forward to the rest of the presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Taniwi. Jakey, you're next.
Moving on,
yeah, move on.
sir.
Yep.
Can we get the PowerPoint slide back up? All right, sir. Next, we're going to federal grant and capital improvement project updates, and I'd like Mr. Frank Santos to give this presentation.
Thank you, Executive Manager, and good afternoon, Chairman, Vice Chairman, Vice Speaker is no longer here, and Senators. I'm giving you a snapshot.
Before we start, Frank, congratulations. Today is your wedding anniversary. I know your wife said we need to get you out of here in time for you to take her to dinner. So,
well,
congratulations.
Thank you, and
happy anniversary.
That's why she told me to get home by 3:30. So, okay. So I'll talk fast. Okay. Well, my name is Frank Santos. I'm the consultant for the airport. I want to give you a snapshot and a status report on our current federal grant and capital improvement projects as of today. These are projects that are either work in progress or we anticipate the grants to be issued in the next 60 days from the FAA. We have a total of 18 projects listed, of which 83% is federally funded or have federal funding components, and the rest is strictly with airport funds. Of the total value of all 18 projects is approximately $104 million, of which $89.7 million is FAA and $14.3 million is airport funds. Just to give you how the federal funding works for the airport, it's really primarily FAA, Federal Aviation Administration monies. The initial one is what they call Airport Improvement Program, AIP. The first part is there's entitlements. Entitlements means it's all based on the passenger activity for your major funding. Then you also have what they call cargo entitlements, which is all based on the weight of the aircraft used exclusively for cargo. And that's like our FedEx, our UPS, our APA aircraft. The other portions of that is you have a 5-year program that was developed. It used to be called under the bill. No longer bill, so don't quote me on that. But bill has 2 parts. It's called Airport Infrastructure Grants, AIG, which is also based on our activity. Then there's a second grant, which is ATP, or Airport Terminal Program, and that is a discretionary competitive grant that we have to apply for, and we compete against all the U.S. airports for it. The other funding source under AP or federal FAA is supplemental. There's a supplemental discretionary that the FAA can administer. There's a second one called community projects or congressional earmarks that we provide to the congressional delegate that he can, if up to him, to request for inclusion in any budget appropriation. So in the list of the projects that we have here, 2 of them are from that congressional earmarks, and they all deal with like fire alarm, fire suppression systems, and the second one deals with accessibility or compliance of Americans with Disabilities Act. Okay. If you let me focus on the larger ticket items.
And the congressman has included that, right?
Yes, and we have received the funding for that.
Okay, thank you.
We have other projects that we are currently forwarded to him for consideration by his office. Typically, there's like a 2-year lag. So if it's a 2025 grant, it came from 2023 sources. So that's the way it happens to DC, but we'll get it anytime the money becomes available.
Could you provide the committee with your request for that then?
Sure.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. I mean, that way we can help you out as well, because we have oversight of federal affairs as well. So we want to make sure that, you know, we get what we can. We got to pay down that $9 million, man.
Yeah. Okay, will do, sir. So, you know, one of the reasons why we have all these projects is we have a terminal building that's approaching 30 years old already, believe it or not. I've been there just as long, if not longer. But, you know, 1996, so 2026, we're approaching 30 years, not just the terminal building, but the special equipment that goes into it. So everything from baggage handling systems to loading bridges, you don't find it anywhere else on the island except at the airport. And those are running its due course. So we have projects that get involved with rehabilitation, renewal, modernization type projects, and that including hardening for typhoons. And although we can call it a replacement, also say our flooring, right? Our flooring was damaged by Typhoon Mawar. We don't want to get into that situation again, so now we're looking at hardening, which is a project that is in progress right now. And the others, including the apron project, that's all part of the taking our assets and increasing its useful life. Then you have capacity issues with respect to the loading bridges, the aprons, of course, and of course, cargo. So we have plans for a new cargo aprons that will just support cargo aircraft, not to be commingled with the passenger operation. You also have improving the passenger experience, and that's where the ADA comes in. We know that our markets are all aging, and the birth rates are all declining, so the senior citizens will be a larger part of our demographics of visitors that are coming in. So we want to make sure that its accessibility and the ability to move in and out, up and down is better. If you notice, I didn't mention anything regarding our moving walks and escalators yet, but next year's oversight will have that on our plate.
Actually, I'm going to ask those questions.
Yeah, just take Yes, sir. Then we have the life safety issues is the fire alarm and the fire suppression. And then we have energy and sustainability, and we had projects with energy efficiency assessment, which will lead into a microgrid feasibility study. And we also have what they call ZEV-VALE, vehicles. ZEV stands for zero emissions, and VALE stands for voluntary airport low emission vehicles. So we have all those projects in play. But the apron project is the largest one that we have out there, and it's total $46 million. It's 27% complete. The aprons are the asphalt or concrete portions that surround the terminal building, of which has the capacity to hold aircraft weight. So our design group 6, we can handle 747-800 aircraft on those aprons. We expect the phase 1, which is most of the gates, to be completed by June of 2026, and phase 2, which is the aprons that were fronting the old cargo building, to be completed by June of 2027. The second one is the roof construction. There's also 2 phases to that. The first phase consists of multiple building areas, and we are going to replace remove the old roof membrane, which is actually in really bad shape, which is a source of many leaks that occur within the terminal building. So removing that, preparing the surface, installing brackets. The brackets would hold future solar panels, which is the phase 2 project. Then put in the new membrane. So just the phase 1 alone is approximately, including the airport share, is about $22.5 million. We have not issued a notice to proceed for that project because we're waiting for the phase 4 of the legal review under the procurement to be signed off first. Then we can enter into pre-construction mode, get a notice to proceed issued, then we can provide a better schedule as to when that will be complete. However, phase 2, which is the solar panels, is already out on bid, and it's going to be open next week. So at least we will know what the numbers are for that. But it also has, out of phase 2, has mini phases. So in other words, we can fit the FAS, if you notice the list, $9.4 million, they have $9 million available for that particular phase. We can adjust the mini phasing to fit that particular dollar amount. Hopefully, the dollar amount is enough to cover the entire phase. But still, being that phasing occurs, even though phase 1 project is not complete, some parts of it will be complete, of which phase 2 contractor can come back in and start installing solar panels and the electrical connections for it. Some other key projects, for example, if you want me to go down the list or just focus on the key projects as I...
Key projects, okay.
Is the Part 150 noise study. Everybody complains about the noise. I think actually under our airport program, we've already insulated over 250 homes. But in order to continue that program, we needed to update our Part 150 noise study, which consists of 2 parts. One is the noise exposure map, and they call the NEM. So that has been completed. That has been approved and accepted by the FAA. The second part of that is the noise compatibility program, and that consists of other measures that will reduce the aircraft noise on our surrounding communities. That could be flight paths, restriction on operations, but it also includes the noise mitigation program, so the sound and solutions that we embarked before. Right now, the current approved NEM has identified an additional over 200 plus homes to be soundproofed. So as soon as we get the NCP approved, we can issue an application to the FAA to start that process again. The ones that are more visible is the floor replacement. Everyone sees that because it's not part of our art program. But it is a $3.3 million project. It's terrazzo, primarily. There are portions of the project that are carpeted, but it's mostly the offices.
That has started. When is the completion date for that? Because it has already started.
The completion date is for phase one is June of 2026. We hope that the contractor can, based on their experience in working with the initial phases, can create a better efficiency that would then improve the deadline or the construction completion date. June 2026 is not the contract completion date. The contract completion date is actually the end of the year. But we're taking into account the fact that we are phasing, and with all airport construction, we are doing work while the aircraft and airlines are operating. So we need to maintain safety and security utmost during those periods of time. But you will start seeing progress, real progress that you can stand on we believe by September of this year. The other one is terminal painting. Actually, with terminal painting, we are 80% complete. All the public side areas have been are done. We are now in the back of the house on the air operations area. But going back to the floor, the photo to the right of the slide is a rendering of what it will look like as you come down from Customs and Border Protection into Guam Customs. So, there is a Guam seal that's there. That's part of the program, so you know where you're landing. One other important project that we like to indicate is the security screening. The security screening project consists of three parts. One is there's a door, which we call door 202, connects from the Customs and Border Protection to the security screening area. Right now, if you're going to transit Guam, you have to go all the way down to Guam Customs, back out into the public area, then back in through screening again. So what we're going to do is we're going to avoid all that. So once international transits or international crew clears Customs and Border Protection, they can immediately go into the screening area without having to have a change in floors or have to go through the screening process from the outset. The second part of that is we're going to be enclosing the screening lanes to provide security for the TSA personnel. And the third one is what we call a conceptual design to expand the floor to increase the queuing area, the area in front of screening. If you know, it's really tight. And once we start getting busier, we don't want the passengers to be queuing upstairs or up the escalator, because that's a very unsafe condition. And that means we have to hold them down in the ticketing lobby. So at this point in time, that completes my update. So if there's any questions, please feel free.
Thank you, Frank. Actually, at this point, I want to recognize former, of course, Congressman Mike Nicholas. I want to get some clarification. I'm glad, we got his expertise here as well, because he had some points to bring up in regards to, and maybe, former Congressman, can you come up, please, real quick? In clarification on the liquid fuels tax in regards to whether or not we have to pay that back because of the Section 30 money. So, Congressman, you identify yourself again and maybe clarify that in regards to your work with Congress?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. For the record, I'm Michael Nicholas, former Congressman. I was just advising Chairman, excuse me, on the liquid fuel tax that FAA is claiming the government of Guam owes back. Has GIAA clarified with them whether or not that is actually a Section 30 reimbursement that they should be owing us instead of us owing them?
Thank you, and welcome, Congressman Nicholas. It's nice to see you. With regards to that, so in my experience with Section 30, I believe Section 30 is the section of the Organic Act that deals with monies that are collected by the federal government for taxes that are collected from them for, it could be for those individuals who may either have a pension and they are on the federal roll that are on Guam. For example, we can have USPS, we can have people in the district court, or they could be military service people who also are Guam-based, but they are Guam, but they are maybe somewhere else, not in Guam, but they're earning money. And so with regards to this, the reason why we believe that that's different is because this money actually wasn't collected by the federal government, but was collected locally here by the local government. And again, you can find it in the Special Revenue Funds report, as the deputy mentioned in the Guam Highway Fund section. So that's really the distinction. This money, although the FAA and the CFR, I guess, basically dictate, or the Federal Register basically dictates how the funds are to be utilized and whether or not they, again, how they are to be utilized. The federal government itself did not actually receive the monies. The government of Guam actually, in the special revenue funds, right? It was received by the government of Guam. So I believe that is the distinction and why we believe that that may not apply.
But FAA is claiming it's a receivable to them from the government of Guam, the liquid fuel tax.
Oh, to clarify, to clarify, the FAA actually, and again, they are our federal, I guess, oversight or counterpart, and they administer certain programs, and the federal law actually that I think we may have the reference that we could share with you. The monies actually are due to the Guam International Airport Authority because of, again, a certain law that is in the Federal Register. I don't know if you have the actual reference, Deputy, but it is monies that is due to the Guam International Airport Authority from the government of Guam. To clarify, again, prior to 2018, Public Law 34-44, I believe, prior to that particular public law, the aviation fuel tax was grandfathered. There perhaps was a change in the federal law that required that any further adjustments to that particular type of revenue stream would have to be provided to or given to the Guam International Airport Authority just because of the nature of the actual tax, I guess. I hope that that's clear.
Right, and so just for a chairman's edification, of course, in the end, it'll be chairman's jurisdiction as to how he wants to pursue the facts of the case. But the point being is that even the aviation fuel tax, and this is something actually that was on my radar too when I was in the legislature almost 10 years ago now, was those taxes, even if it's being remitted to the airport, the reality is that the Organic Act is very plain that all federal taxes should be covered into the territory of Guam. And it's not actually specific to any single agency. And so if there is a concern that the $9 million may need to be paid either to GIAA or to the FAA from government of Guam coffers, the counter-argument could potentially be, Chairman, that the Section 30 clause of the Organic Act makes it such that that sum is actually supposed to be paid to the territory of Guam itself.
Sure.
And in fact, if this issue is actually being brought forward on the $9 million today, then a bigger question can be asked over the aviation fuel taxes going back to the inception of that tax. I think it was in the 1960s.
Sure.
That if that tax was in fact being covered into the airport via the FAA, via the aviation tax, then perhaps those sums should have actually been remitted to the territory of Guam. So there could be a large outstanding balance owed to the territory if the flow of those funds was not specific to the territory as the way Section 30 stipulates.
Sure.
So I just wanted to clarify that, and thank you, Mr. Chairman, for the opportunity.
Well, thank you, Congressman. And actually, it's an argument that I would love to put forward. I would love to put forward and get an answer on that and get, a finite answer to that as well. But first of all, the committee would like to find out exactly where that money went and what it was used for. Because once we know where that money went and what it was used for, and if it was used for legitimate reasons, that maybe even some operations that have to do with maybe federal mandates and things of that nature, that will make our argument stronger. to bring forward to the for the FAA, to the Department of Transportation, and of course to the congressman. So with that being said, I would hope that we all collectively try to find out where that money went, and then put that argument together, as suggested, of course, by former congressman. And thank you very much for that. That's vital information that we need, because if in fact, we can go that route, and if there's monies coming back, absolutely, anytime.
And if I may, just real quickly, my understanding of cover over, cover over is generally monies that goes government to government, right? And so when we deal with cover overs, like for example, when we were dealing with cover overs for Section 30 monies for taxes that have to be remitted. And of course, that's actually included in the executive budget. There has to be an estimate of how much those cover overs are going to be. I'm sure that you will see that in the presentation that's provided when you do get the presentation in probably mid-August. But those monies, again, I believe the way that cover over works is generally government to government. And we are, like, with regards to, again, even with regards to how the Guam International Airport is structured, even with regards to how we were created. And if you'll notice, we are actually within the, you could find us in the actual DOA, or the financial statement audit for the government of Guam, because we're a component unit of the government of Guam. So we're not like a separate government. So I'm not sure. But again, I think that was a very interesting, argument for it. But, again, my experience has been that generally cover-overs deal with government to government, but we're within the same government. Also, they generally deal with, I believe, when the federal government, or at least in our case, when I've dealt with Section 30 monies, when the federal government receives the actual money, and then they transmit it to us as a separate government. But again, it's an interesting argument. I've not heard of it in that way, but my understanding is that, again, I'm not sure if that may apply in that way, but I suppose it's something that could be asked.
If we don't try, we can never find out.
Yeah, and Mr. Chair, I defer to Daphne's former. I would defer to Daphne's former.
Congressman, please stick around. No, and absolutely, because we just made that argument not too long ago. We penned a letter to the federal government as well in regards to what was allowed back, or identified back when Delegate Berdallo, Congressman Berdallo, in regards to the Port Authority, in regards to $51 million, and is yet to be remitted to the Port Authority. I don't know if there's any funding there. So that was back, I think, over, gosh, I don't know how many years ago that was. And so I'm sure with escalated costs and things like that, it's a lot more. But we're still asking for what she initially asked for the Port Authority with $50 million. So if we didn't ask, it wouldn't come up, And so when we have when we have changes in regards to our representative in Washington D.C., I don't know how much transition comes from one office to the next. And so if we have the argument to place here, and maybe it's something that wasn't in the radar for the current congressman, then we have to bring it to their attention. And again, if we don't ask, we're not going to get anything. And if we put the argument together, with that. And as a matter of fact, not too long ago, I think the AG had put forth the argument we should have never paid for the ORDOT dump situation. It should have been a federal government responsibility to pay for it, but we didn't put that argument forward. And if we would have, I don't know what would have happened. But we should have put that argument forward. So something like this is worth putting forward. And the worst they're going to say is no. The best they can say is, yeah, we'll come up with some money, or we'll wash out the debt. Call it a wash, right? Okay, thank you very much. But Congressman, if you want to stick around, if you're, you got to go. Okay, thank you. Likewise, okay, so back to federal grants and the capital improvement. Frank, the situation at the airport in regards to, okay, you had some jetways that are operable versus not, right? Now, some of the things that have to be replaced or replenished and things like that, how much of that is just, you said it's an older facility now, it's over 30 years, okay? But how much is that is maybe typhoon related, and where's the fine line where it's typhoon related versus it's just old, it has its at this time, and how much of that, again, because we saw what happened to the floors, right? We saw the waterfall, basically. The airport authority became a waterfall. And so if the carpets were ruined, those are the same people, movers, same elevators that had water in them as well. So did that nullify, or is that covered by insurance?
We have insurance coverage.
Okay.
Maximum coverage is $5 million, but you have also a $5 million deductible.
Okay.
So you have to have at least $10 million worth of approved.
Okay. So let me ask this, and I don't know if you're the right one to answer this, but the insurance claims that we had over Mawar, okay, have all that been paid to the airport? Have the claims been paid already?
We're close to getting payment, so we understand.
I'm sorry?
No, we are close to getting the actual payment. We believe it's going through the check process. We understand that right now it's in Manila, but
I'm kind of confused because it's getting processed.
Yes.
What's taking so long? What's taking so long? Hotels have been paid for by the insurance and all that, and what's taking so long for the airport to be paid its insurance claim?
The insurance adjusters, we have a whole list of damages that we also utilize for FEMA.
Okay.
Including potential business interruption claims. So again, we need to come up with at least 10 million, but we need to go 13 million just in case there's questionable. But they had questions throughout our claims. So it's a matter of providing the documentation or getting clarification from the architect engineering firms that we retain to do the initial assessments, damage assessments. Mm-hmm. So it was just a long process, mm-hmm. similar to what we're going through right now with FEMA.
Doesn't the proclamation of a disaster suffice or something like that? If insurance is taking a while to pay, but then right off the bat, the federal government comes in and assists us because we're proclaimed a disaster. And so, I understand having to justify, okay, and that's why I'm saying, how much of these inoperable equipment up there are just old related, or just life because of age, and how much of it is really made fast forwarded their life based on the typhoon and the water damage that it incurred. Because if your flooring was replaced, that had to come from up above there, and all the people movers those had to be soaked as well. Those had to be drowning in water as well.
Yeah, it's a combination of both. For example, and let's take the floor. The floor is damage, so we go like for like, it'll be carpet for carpet. Mm-hmm. But we did not want to get carpet in there again because if there's another storm,
sure,
or even any water intrusion, then we have that same process. So it's a combination of where we're going to replace, but at the same time harden, mm-hmm. so that we remove that particular damage, hopefully for our next storm. And then you take the roof also. The roof is old, but also the storm damaged it further. So we're going through the whole process of replacing the entire roof and making sure that with federal dollars now, FA dollars, the only thing with the FA dollars at that time was we need to put in a sustainability component, mm-hmm. to justify that. So it included the solar panels, which is the phase 2 portion. Now, on the loading bridges, if you notice, we replaced 4 loading bridges. Those are the 4 loading bridges that were damaged by the storm. There's another 11 bridges that we're going to get replaced, but it's at perhaps during FY27. So like I said, in the next go-around, the additional bridges, and as well as the conveyance systems dealing with elevators, escalators, and moving walks. Fortunately, notwithstanding they all had water intrusion, most of them are in operating condition. Mm-hmm. But most of them also are old enough where the parts are not being made anymore. So it's a matter of doing a Band-Aid approach just to keep them operating to a certain point, and it's primarily the moving walks, but it is in our radar to get it replaced sooner than later.
And the replacement, again, of course, will come, I mean, we go through the procurement situation where the lowest bidder will be awarded, but the lowest bidder may not have the maintenance component and have to farm it out. And if whoever they farm out goes out of business, then you're going to have to find, you know, and that's the problem we see. And you know, as an airport, and all of us have experienced this, coming on a flight and your escalators are not working, you know, like that. And man, I mean, regardless if it's a 3-hour flight or 8-hour flight, you know, regardless of your age, you know, I mean, it's a task to walk up those stairs. And now, of course, where you have segregated, you know, arrivals and departures, and those are long ways to walk as well. And so, you know, those are the first impressions that our guests see when they arrive here and when they leave as well. So those are the things that, you know, we see in other airports as well, and you know, what's lacking on our side and what maybe we can enhance, you know, you know, for our customer experience.
That's correct.
Yeah. Okay, so you said you're in the process of or the check being cut or signed, and it's in the Philippines right now, making its way over here?
That's our understanding.
Okay.
I was going to go pick it up, but they won't.
Okay, so is it on a PAL flight, a United flight that went over here? Okay, great. Yeah. Who insures you? Are you Lloyd's of London? Are you?
Well, the reinsurance market is Lloyd's of London, but it's through the Cabos Insurance.
Okay. Got it. Okay. Senator Duenas.
Honestly, Mr. Chair, and it's a pretty thorough line. I guess, Frank, my only thing is most of this already under procurement, or is there any pending procurements?
The different phases, so, you know, because if you notice, they're all over 500,000, so the legal review that's required, so we're in different phases of the procurement for that. Like, for example, the roof phase 1 is waiting for phase 4, which is this execution of the agreement. Then you have loading bridges. The loading bridges have been awarded by the board, but it's for the legal process right now before we can award it. Now, the fire alarm and suppression, we've done that already. ADA improvements, we've done that already. So we went through the RFP process for the A&E. They've been selected, but it's also queued up for the legal review.
So I'm just asking because one of the things that we've continued to get throughout our hearings, and it's perennial in the government, is procurement and protests and all the issues with procurement. So I'm just trying to get a feel for how your experience has been. Has your procurement for these projects been relatively smooth?
Of all the projects that are listed, only one of them went through a protest.
Okay. And because you have legal counsel, your ability to prepare and to see it through the process, is that created efficiency for you?
And notwithstanding, we have our own counsel, but being that these all have federal funding in it, the oversight for them to review both the plan specs and the process is all reviewed by the FAA.
Right. I guess we're trying to find models sometimes where we can, Senator.
Yeah, I was just saying that, yes, all these procurements that we go through for these contracts is not only scrutinized by our legal counsel, but FAA, but now also it's got to be scrutinized by the AG.
Thank you, Frank. Thank you, Senator. That's all I have.
Thank you, Senator Brennan. Senator Calma.
Thank you. Mr. Frank, I really don't want to get in trouble with your wife, so I'm not going to ask a lot of questions. and you pretty much explained everything about capital improvement. But I promise you that I would call Calva's Insurance so they can call Lloyd's. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. It pays to have some connect. Yeah. Thank you very much. Senator Terlai.
Thank you. Can I just ask Director Kinata, Senator, you said that in the beginning that you had recently completed a master plan update and a land use plan update. Are these improvements, I can't find that update on your website or in your minutes. Where can I find that? And are these improvements that, you know, we can expect also included there?
Yes, so that master plan was just recently approved by the FAA, so we'll send that to you, Senator.
All right, does it need board approval or it's done?
It's been through the board.
The master plan
Yes.
update and the land use plan update.
I don't know about the land use, but
the land use plan, Senator, it's
Those won't be on your website?
It's posted on our website.
Okay, I just couldn't find it.
We can make sure that you get.
All right, thank you.
Just to verify the link.
That's all I need. Thank you. And these projects you do, those are pursuant to the plan?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Susan Masi, Senator Terlai. Senator Bora. Okay, thank you. Yeah, we were definitely trying to get you home to the wife. Senator Talataitigui.
I know his wife, so no questions for me.
Susan Masi. Well, that was a pretty efficient chapter, so we'll move on to the next, Senator.
All right,
Please
thank
identify.
you. Thank you, Senator. Next slide, please. And next slide will be our airline service expansion and tourism impact, and I'll have our Dr. Ricky Hernandez give this presentation.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Yim, and Mr. Vice Chair, Madam Vice Chair, and other senators present. I also know Frank's wife, so I'll try to be swift, but also succinct. So what you have in front of you is just some information, a snapshot in time of the number of seats by airline, which is an indicator for, of course, in-plane passengers or potential in-plane passengers for the months of May through August 2025. Just off the bat, you see the visual that there has been some significant movement upward in the number of seats. And in this slide, just to orient you to this, what you have here are bars that represent the total seats per month from May to August 2025. And then included in that, if we can go back one slide. There we go. And underneath that, I know it's a little small, but we do have printouts, incorporates the data backing those bar charts with airlines. And so I just wanted to just mention up front that from May through August 2025, what we're looking at in terms of number of seats is a nearly 40% increase from May to August 2025. Much of that increase is very specifically related to our Korean carriers. Korean Airlines is reflecting a May to August increase of 241% in seats. Jin Air represents an 89.8% increase in seat capacity. Jeju Air, between May and August, we're looking at a 99.7% increase in seat capacity. And then T-Way, of course, 100% increase. Maybe in the next few slides, I'll talk about where those increases are coming from. But we've been seeing pretty much marked improvements in seat capacity. Of course, the work now is getting people into the seats. And so we've been working collaboratively with GVB on that. And then if we can move to the next slide. The next slide is the same data, but broken down by origin. And I just wanted to mention, of course, you can see the blue part of the bar chart. That represents flights from Incheon, South Korea. And so we're looking at a 112% increase in seat capacity from Incheon. And then from Kansai, we're seeing a 113% increase. And then from Busan, 238% increase. That's what's been really driving. And then, of course, the total amount is a 40% increase from May to August. But a lot of that's being driven by our Korean carriers. And you see Kansai there, and you notice T-Way I know that Senator was present at the inaugural flight. That's what's driving a lot of that increase there. And if I could probably go to the verbiage slide on the next couple slides. So some of the recent increased service is coming from, like I said, Korean Air, but just a little bit more detail. They added a second daily Incheon flight that was effective July 1st, all the way to the end of the calendar year. That's about 10,000 seats for that one aircraft. What's not up there is that they're also starting 2 extra narrow-body flights, one from Incheon daily and one from Busan daily. And so that's going to add another about 10,000. Jin Air recent increased service is a second daily Incheon flight. That's effective July 1st through the end of the calendar year. That's adding about 5,600. And so these are the ones that are kind of represented in the previous bar charts. T-Way, again, I mentioned from Osaka to Guam, effective July 18, just a few days ago, ending on October 25th. And then Jeju Air looking at second daily Incheon flight. That's effective July 12th through October. Some things on the horizon. Upcoming additional service. We're looking at adding about 17,000 additional seats monthly. Jin Air is looking at doing their third daily flight.
Yeah, if you can go to the next slide.
Oh, I'm sorry, yeah. If you can go to the next slide. Yeah, so Jin Air is looking at a third daily flight from Incheon effective September 2nd. Air Seoul. Air Seoul is one of our signatory airlines. They did fly all the way up until just after COVID. And then they ceased operations, but they're coming back. Daily operations from Incheon effective October 1st. And then we have Air Busan, who's starting their daily operations from Busan November 1st. Also been working with these airlines to get them back into an office space at the airport in the main terminal building for, of course, operation support. And so a lot of this tourism expansion has been a direct result, obviously, of efforts that are being made between the airport, of course, and GVB, with support, of course, from the governor's office. And I think in terms of some of what that collaboration looks like, there's another part of the presentation based on the agenda. We'll kind of talk about that collaborative effort and what we've been doing in a little detail. But in the interest of not making Frank's wife mad, who's my auntie, by the way, if we can, Senator, we can move on to the security portion of, unless there's some questions that you want to pose. But we'll also be talking a little bit more about air service in the last part of the presentation. So.
Senator, just FYI, also there was an airline, Greater Bay, that was trying to get their flying certificate to Guam. So.
Which airline is that?
Greater Bay. It came out in the news.
Okay.
And we've been trying to communicate with them to see if, when this operation is going to start. From the airport perspective, we're talking about operations like, okay, are you going to have a ground handler? What kind of service are you looking at? What kind of aircraft are you using? So those types of things. When we saw the news report, I think through GVB tried to reach out to them.
Could you also clarify, because I'm getting folks that are calling my office and texting me as well in regards to PAL, the Philippine Airlines, because there's information going out there that actually that they're switching over to wide bodies. My understanding, the wide body, they have that there are only going to be 2 flights that will avail to the folks out here, and that will be for Christmas and New Year, and that's just one flight, if I'm not mistaken, that seats about 300 plus passengers. But it's not a switchover from the narrow body to the wide body at this point, right? If I'm Frank?
Mr. Chairman, yeah, that's correct. Right now, what the Manila, Guam is called a Route 1, and it goes all the way back to UMDA. Air Micronesia rights. So when Continental took that over, it was when we were Continental Micronesia. But eventually, when United bought out Continental, that route remained as route number 1. So it consists of narrow body aircraft, like a 737. But during special seasons or holidays, either carrier can upgrade to a wide body. only for those particular days.
Yeah.
So,
And my understanding, again, there's just the two flights.
Yeah,
There's
well,
Christmas and then New Year.
Yeah,
We're switching over to a wide body plane, which will actually accommodate, 320 passengers, something like that. Yeah, okay. One other thing, too, is I know we had visited and communicated and spoke to not only Cebu Pacific, but also PAL in regards to the possibility of them flying out of Cebu to Guam, Cebu. Can you give us an update on that particular route and where PAL is with that, or where we are with that? Because I know they're with GVB as well, alongside the airport, looking for, I think, incentives and looking whether the numbers can work out.
correct. Based on our last meeting with PAL, which included their president, who has now been promoted to the PAL holding company, but we have not met the new president yet. But in the meantime, discussions have been ongoing, and actually the previous president had indicated that it may be more favorable to start with the Clark or Pampanga area airport to Guam, simply because we have already been in communication with Clark, and we're already looking at an airport-to-airport incentive program. So it's not just an incentive from Guam, but it's an incentive from Clark Airport also. So that gives them a little bit more incentive to fly it. But at the same time, we're looking at the approach of, instead of a subsidy, we're looking at a guaranteed break-even load factor incentive where the risk is shared by both the airline and the destination. If their break-even load factor is at 70%, then our obligation or our commitment, not Guam Airport, Guam's commitment, because the Guam Airport can't get involved in that particular type of incentive, is they guarantee up to that 70%. If they fall below it, say 65%, and we can do it either on a quarter, every 6 months, or annually, is that they will not ever lose money on it because it's guaranteed. So, but we think, and we know that a lot of the originating passengers coming through Manila is originating from Pampanga. One, especially the H2 workers, that flight, and it's not only the H2, but there's a lot of military activity that's occurring in that area, that we feel that it's a low risk, low hanging fruit, as we call it. Then from Cebu, we have not initiated discussion with the airport on doing the same airport-to-airport incentive program. So hopefully we can get into discussions, and what we wanted them to do was provide us numbers as to what the aircraft they plan to use, what the frequency is, and the hardest part of all is what is their break-even load factor.
Yeah.
Then we can compute what our potential exposure is that, that with the legislative appropriation can be set aside for Guam Visitors Bureau to stay there.
Well, I think what will enhance our argument as well with that is just recently Congressman Moylan also had advocated, and it looks like we're going to get the Veterans Medical Facility transferred from the Philippines to Guam. And knowing that there are a lot of expats that live, in the Clark area, that could enhance, again, that's a further enhances our argument to substantiate them flying out of Clark.
Yeah, then a recent development which could hamper our efforts is since the Philippines yet is not visa free yet, there's an additional surcharge that I believe Customs and Border Protection is going to be assessing for any visas now being issued. I think an additional $250, which is a pretty hefty.
It is, yeah.
Yeah, it's refundable, but at the same time, do they have the money at that time to pay for their visa? So we're looking at that and seeing how we can, even working through the delegate.
Yeah. Frank, the other thing here is we got information, right? And supposedly on the 3rd of December, that China Air will have its inaugural flight. And I think if, in fact, and we met on this, in fact, if this is true, it gives us even better, it enhances our argument to exempt our cabotage, because China Air, supposedly, was just granted a route from Taipei, Phoenix to LA, back to Taipei, which is exactly the argument that we're putting forth. We're wanting one other U.S. destination because their initial flight was Taipei, Phoenix, Taipei. Now, because of a load factor, I guess, right? So they're allowing them to go from Taipei, Phoenix, China Air, from Phoenix to LA, LA back to Taipei. So can you again, so we can put our argument. I mean, and we're asking for we're not even asking for China Air for that. We're asking for PAL, JAL, and CAL to have one other U.S. destination.
Yes, Senator, we did look into that.
Yeah.
And yes, it is possible. The only downside is they cannot fly passengers between Phoenix and LA, ticketed passengers.
Ticketed passengers.
If you're flying from Taipei to LA, you could transit Phoenix.
Okay.
If you're flying from, or vice versa, right? But you cannot take a ticketed passenger from Phoenix
to LA.
To LA.
It has to be the same passenger.
Yeah.
But they can route through. They can get to LA via Phoenix.
So they transit Phoenix. Yes. Only transit.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
And coincidentally, the Marianas Visitors Authority inquired with the U.S. Department of Transportation on that same issue, but again, it was the Guam Saipan route, right? And say Korean Airlines flying from Seoul, Guam, Saipan, Seoul. So yes, you can, but there's no ticketed passengers from Guam to Saipan. So that doesn't really help in terms of promoting competition with the existing incumbents, right?
Well, we have that kind of right now, right? At times we have like, what is it, technical stop?
Yeah,
technical stop, right? We have technical stop, and so they land in Guam, but you can't have a ticket passenger go on board and all that, so, and can't get off, so they fly to one other U.S. destination, right?
But, you know, the way you see it, if you can get them to fly the route, then the only missing component is getting DOT or the federal government to approve just this portion.
Well, and that's the argument, and so we'll use whatever argument we can to substantiate, to justify, again, the need.
Absolutely.
I mean, we know our need, but, you know, if we can look at other airlines that have been granted, you know, that sets precedence for us. One other clarification, and I apologize to the colleagues, because I just received this minutes before I came in here, and I had it printed right away, but I will include that in your packet. And I'll read a letter that I received from Jen Air, and I'm sure they wrote this to you guys, but they sent me a copy. And let me read it, and maybe can you clarify it? Okay, let me read it. This is from Yoon Jun Shil from Jen Air, and it's subject to Air Service Development Incentive Program application to GIAA. It says, with warm greetings from Jen Air. We would like to express our sincere appreciation for your continued cooperation and support of Jen Air's operation in Guam. We are writing to formally raise our concern regarding GIAA's recent decision to approve only a 30% incentive discount for our planned increased flight operation between Korea and Guam. We respectfully reiterate our position that a 50% discount is both necessary and appropriate, based on the following grounds. During your recent visit to Korea, including joint meetings with GVB and Mr. Ricky Hernandez, Deputy Executive Manager of GIAA, there was a clear verbal understanding that Jen Air will be granted a 50% incentive discount in recognition of our expanded flight operations. At a time when many carriers are scaling back or maintaining their current capacity between Korea and Guam, Jen Air continues to increase supply on the route. As for now, we provide the largest capacity among Korean low-cost carriers, underscoring our long-term commitment to supporting the Guam tourism market and local economy. In light of these considerations, we kindly urge GIAA to honor their previously discounted 50% discount rate for our expanded services or service. We sincerely appreciate your attention to this matter and look forward to your positive response. And the other letter, again, actually it's the same letter, but it's just now written to me. I hope this message finds you well. My name is John Jing Jong, President of the Korea Guam Travel Association, KGTA, an organization representing the interests of the Korean travel and aviation industry in Guam. KGTA and its member airlines have been committed partners in the recovery and continued development of Guam's tourism industry following the COVID-19 pandemic. Recently, however, our organization has received several concerns from member carriers regarding the application of the airport usage fee incentive program administered by GIAA. According to our understanding, a 50% discount on airport usage fee was verbally communicated during recent meetings in Korea between GIAA, GVB, and airline executives. However, we have been informed that only a 30% discount has been applied, contrary to what was initially conveyed. This discrepancy has led to a significant concern among airlines, as it directly affects route expansion decisions and long-term planning. Given the importance of air connectivity in supporting Guam's tourism and economic growth, particularly from Korea, one of Guam's key source markets, we respectfully request your office attention to this matter. We believe that consistent, transparent policy implementation is essential to building lasting trust with industry stakeholders and maintaining Guam's competitiveness as a destination. We have also included in Appendix A, a recent letter submitted by Jin Air, the one I just read, basically outlining their concern. Thank you for your leadership and continued support of Guam's tourism industry. We welcome any opportunity to further discuss this issue at your convenience. And this is a nice way of putting it, right? But they're really saying is, you promise us something you're not delivering, and so I think giving us a warning. Can you elaborate on that?
Yeah, thanks for the question, Senator. And we're aware of the letters, of course, and the correspondence. The Air Service Incentive Development Program was something that was updated earlier last year. And I think as it relates to what the board had allowed us to do is up to 50% to be provided for air service discounts. It's been a very successful program. Many airlines have taken part in it, but I understand the expectation set versus what was actually approved based on applications was not met, right? And so what we've been doing, and we've been working with that, and maybe just the reason why that expectation may not have been met because these incentives are up to 50% is, of course, the FAA allows the airport to do these types of incentives and has to be, we have to ensure that we don't discriminate necessarily against any other carrier. And so when these increased flight frequencies were provided, of course, the airport reviewed these and in consideration of the FAA policies, as well as you've seen Daphne's reports on the airport finances, it was determined that the amount provided and approved was what we communicated. But because of the letters and the concerns, we have been working with GVB to see how we could fulfill those expectations. And so that conversation continues. We have been, obviously, our airline partners have been really great stewards of Guam, and we appreciate all of the work that they've been doing at all levels, corporate operations, sales, to make these flights sustainable. But it is an open dialogue that we're having with both the airlines and GVB, and we can certainly provide you an update as those conversations continue.
Well, I appreciate that, but my concern is here because they penned a letter to us, right? And so I don't know if it was lost in communication or what, right? But I want to make sure that we speak with one voice, and whoever is providing the incentive or putting out the incentive, that it's clear that that person or entity is the one tasked in doing so. Because, the four of us can go, and one can be saying this, and and they hear 30 up to 50%, and they're expecting 50%, all that, right? So it has to be clear on who sends that message, who delivers that message, because this is not a good letter. This is it. It's not. But likewise, the other airlines that are not receiving the 50%, they're saying, "Oh, you promised them 50, and you're only giving us 30." So that's where that comes in regards to the discrimination, right? Discrimination. So, I have oversight of GVB as well, and I would be communicating with them that, incentives. Yeah, we have programs, but don't shoot your mouth off. And say these things, because they take it to heart. And so once we've done that, and to get letters like this, it's not good. I don't appreciate letters like this. But if it's loss of communication, I would hope. Can you make sure that you're responding to them, right?
Yeah, we'll have an open dialogue. It's an open dialogue, especially with GVB, because we wanted to make sure that there's a way to meet that expectation, but we'll get back to you, of course.
And I want to set up a meeting also with GVB, GVB, to have that discussion, Maybe even the governor's office, because I know that they take, you guys take trips in regards to trying to look at new markets and things like that, right? But who is putting out the incentives, and what incentives, right? And who is tasked to do that? It cannot just be everybody. It can't be everybody, because we're getting this letters like this, and it's not good when they're saying, we're keeping up to our end, but you guys are not. Like this house, your word is gold. This is your currency, right? When we go out there and we provide incentives, and they're hearing 50%, they're clawing on that, right? And so this is again. So please rectify this, and as soon as possible, I want to meet with the Airport Authority, as well as GVB and the governor's office, to make sure that one voice, and we designate who that voice is. And if and if we're going to incentivize that airline, then that person has to be there, because that person is going to be the one designated to incentivize the. It cannot just be carte blanche, man. We can't do it. Okay. Yeah. Senator.
Mr. Chair, once again, you've covered that well. Just a couple of comments. While there's difficulty, and as described by yourself on this particular issue, I do have to say that the progress here is impressive. This 17,000, 10 seats monthly. When we take that out over a year's, over 200,000 on an annual basis. When you look at our recovery, that's a big deal. So Frank, I like the shared risk perspective and approach, and I think that I also like the fact that putting this incentive in, or other incentives as you discussed earlier, and kind of taking it out over time. I think you're right, because the averages are probably going to benefit us, benefit both sides. So I think as we have these discussions, Mr. Chair, it's going to be important that we bring everybody together, and maybe a modification of this proposal as we go forward to make it effective. But I really like the shared risk opportunity, and that seems to be even more uniform. I know there's numbers coming out. Well, if you give us this amount of money, this can happen. But I think that load factors and kind of trying to guess based on what these commitments are already, then I think marketing and all this other stuff is where we need to hit it, because it's good for us to hit the numbers. They hit the numbers, they're good too, because there's nothing wrong with them being at or over, right? That's the desire. But if you're slightly under, at least you're adjusting, and both sides are really pushing hard to get those numbers in order to levelize it. So that's just my basic comment on that. Frank, on the Philippine issue, President Trump has been really bragging about his negotiations lately, and looks like with the Philippines, he has scored another agreement with regard to that, Mr. Chair. Maybe when we meet with Congressman Moylan again, we push that the waiver simply because of the new agreements and the way that they've structured the interchange. And it probably seems like it would make sense where it would land on the airline incentives. So, Frank, I know that you frequent as well Washington for different reasons, and even your team when we're talking about bonds and other reporting requirements and the like. Maybe we see what we can do to take that up higher along with the chief executive. But that's, I think, something encouraging for us. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Senator Duenas. Senator July.
Thank you. For the discounted rates, how much total did you budget for that? Is that for FY25 and FY26?
Yeah, we don't have a specific number on that, but it does have an impact on revenues. If I can talk. Yeah, I know Daphne's slides showed the enplanement levels, but what maybe it didn't show was that enplanement levels have been coming in significantly lower than what was included in our budget for each year that rates are based off of. And so I'll give you an example. For this year, we had budgeted rates were based on a forecast of enplanements of 1.26 million. And we're looking at it coming in at, just over a million, maybe, with all the activity going on, maybe at 1.1 million. And so that significant 150,000 enplanement reduction has had, obviously an impact on us financially. But at the same time, trying to balance the fact that we're trying to provide incentives to get flights to Guam. So there is a cost to that incentive. It's the way that incentives are done from the airport's perspective is that we cannot provide cash incentives. We can only discount rates. That's what's allowed by the FAA. Whereas visitors bureaus or authorities are able to target certain parts of the tourism supply chain and direct funds in a more flexible manner. The airport has to be able to provide that on a more consistent basis. And we have been consistent on how we've applied the discounts to all the carriers. And so, but in terms of the dollar amount, of course, that always depends on how many passengers come in, right? Because it's a discount on rates, and rates are subject to number of flights, number of passengers. And so that's kind of how what we've been looking at in terms of.
So when the board made its decision to only allow 30% instead of 50%, don't they use estimates of what impact it's going to have on your budget? Are you saying nobody has an estimate of what we're providing in incentives?
No, we do have estimates. I don't have it in front of us right now.
The estimated total incentives that you're providing, and because I want to compare that to your revenue. Yeah.
Sure. I think, we can provide that.
You don't have it. All right. So the board allowed up to 50%. This is before the promise was made or after?
Up to 50% was for new service. Well, we've been providing 50% for new service or new service from airlines or new destinations. And so we've provided discounts, and it's also on our website. We've provided discount up to 50% for the Haneda route, which is a unserved destination, and then also from Taipei, which is also a completely unserved destination. And so we provided that for those brand new, never provided for in the past.
And they didn't provide it for Janair?
Because Incheon is considered underserved. There was in terms of how we looked at the policy that the FAA provides, because they're an existing airline and it's an existing route.
So no?
We provided
yes?
the 30%.
Right, but I'm asking, just what came first? The promise to Janair of 50%? First of all, did you make that promise to Janair as they're claiming? 50%.
When the presentation was made to up to 50%. So they didn't.
All right. Well, they're saying a very specific name and that they made a very specific promise. But you're saying that you were also there and that was not the promise that was made?
Well, for the trip that I made or that I was on.
Mr. Hernandez, because he's the one named in that letter.
Oh, yes. Yeah, I think, I mean, we've reiterated up to 50%, right? And I think that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to ensure that we work with our partners to be able to meet that expectations.
So you promised them up to 50%? So you're saying they just heard it wrong when they thought it was 50%?
I'm not going to try to figure out exactly what was heard.
But you're trying now to get them 50%?
We're looking at working with GVB to see how that can be funded. Also committing to Senator Lujan to look back and see how we can adjust that. We do have a new fiscal year coming up, so we'll look into that.
What did you do in the new fiscal year? You estimate an amount, right, that you can spare to use for incentives. That's what I'm asking. How much are you setting aside? How much did you set aside in FY25 to use for incentives, or that you could allow loss in rates or loss in?
Yeah, I mean, FY25's finances, of course, is usually incentives are done at the end of the year, but in terms of, so we can reconcile what those benefits were, right? Because every flight comes in, you discount. So we don't know how many, we don't know what the billing would be until we get the number of passengers, the number of flights, the number of uses of the loading bridges. So I'll just say generally that it has an impact on revenues. It's not a cost, right? So it's an impact on revenues.
Okay, Mr. Hernandez, you're asking me to believe that the board approved a number randomly without any amounts attached to that, that they said, yeah, give up to 50% without knowing what the impact would be on airport operations by releasing that revenue.
Yeah,
and I can't believe that. There has to be estimates, and I can't believe you don't know them off the top of your head. The difference between 30 and 50, what is it? What is it that the airport can't afford between 30 and 50%?
I think per flight, if it's a narrow body.
Total. I mean, if you're going to apply it to all airlines, what would it be? If it's only being applied to Jin Air?
It's applied to increased frequencies. Mm-hmm. Yeah, significant increases.
So only those airlines, so which are those?
Those are the airlines that apply for it, and so that has been Jin Air, Jeju, and Korean Air.
All right, so the Korean Guam Travel Association is talk about those airlines.
I believe so.
Right, so what would be the impact of increasing those from 30 to 50?
I think depending on the plane size, I think it'd be around $2,000 per flight.
A total, like an estimate. Impact on your budget.
Yeah.
Otherwise,
and what I'm saying is we can get that to you.
Well, how did the board make its decision? What did you propose to the board in order for it to make a decision up to 50, or only 30 versus 50, or more?
Yeah, we proposed to the program as it was, up to 50%.
All right. I feel like it's not clear. Does anybody want to make it clear? Maybe Mr. or Brian, or if you want to make it clear, what did the board have in mind? Did it say we're going to set aside, we can spare this much money? Or they said we're just going to pick a random number up to 50% and not know what the impact of that was going to be? And now we're stuck at 30%. How did you get stuck at 30% versus 50%?
No, and I appreciate that, Senator. I don't have off the top of my head what that financial number impact is to the budget, but the board was approving a program which was to incentivize additional routes, new services, new capacities. And in my opinion, I think anything greater than zero is better. So if that was the incentive to encourage more activity by airlines, that's what the board approved as a program. The specific financial impact, I think we can gather the numbers. It's a pretty straight line number.
You don't do a cost-benefit analysis of these things?
There was.
All right.
I just don't have it off the top
So
of my head.
there are numbers, right? Otherwise, it would be random.
It's a pretty straight line calculation.
And then, because GVB has to do the same thing, right? You're asking them now to put cash to cover the difference between 30 and 50 to 50%. How much cash are you asking them to come up with?
Yeah, we're currently in discussions with them on that. So we provided them some what that calculation is depending on load factor, depending on the size of the flight.
What would it be between what and what?
Yeah, I'm saying like per flight, depending on the load factor, you're looking at about $2,000 per flight.
You know, the GVB board is not going to make a decision unless they get a number. Are you telling me you're not going to give them an estimate of what the number would be? I mean, I don't know. This is sounding not that believable
Senator,
right now.
I can answer that question for
Sure,
you. I can answer
please.
that question for you. Actually, GVB is looking at raising or asking for 11 million, and 5. I think it's pretty much split between Japan and Korea. So that's what they're asking for, and that's what I'm meeting with them about to get the full details in regards to that, because you know it's not a carte blanche for sure. That's for sure. So I'm meeting with them. Actually, I'm starting to meet with them tomorrow regarding that, because I just don't want to receive any more letters like this.
Yes. I don't either, and I think the board should be concerned, very concerned about it. And then I just want to clarify, can you please clarify what are when you say you can't discriminate according to the FAA, but according to Senator Lujan, GVB is referencing Japan and Korea markets, but you were talking about increase of flights or new flights. So what is it? How can we discriminate?
Yeah, so for the airport itself, we have restrictions on the incentives that we can provide, whereas if you're an entity like
GVB has no restrictions. They can
they
be selective.
They don't fall under FAA. Yes.
All right. So what is your restriction? Do you have to do all airlines, or you can make categories? What categories can you make?
Yeah. So under the FAA has a program called the Air Carrier Incentive Program. It's relative to it gets airports to be able to incentivize routes, right? And I think generally before they made an update prior to the new update in December 2023, it was really specific to new air service, so new airlines flying to the airport, and then or new routes with existing airlines flying new routes. So the FAA allowed for an increased frequency option, as well as seasonal option for new airlines or new routes. And those seasonal routes could fly less than 7 months, and they could be provided up to a certain number of years. Of course, always subject to funding availability. And so, yeah, so our restrictions are really that, we cannot discriminate, but
You
then
have to fit one of these categories that the FAA approves.
Yes.
All right, and if you did, for example, increased frequency, then every airline that had an increase in frequency, you would have to apply that to.
We were applying the same rate.
All right, and does the FAA have any say in whether it's up to 50% or up to 30%? Do they have to approve that?
No, they have like provisions that we have to just comply with.
And what are those? Are those like overall balance sheet provisions?
No, they're.
What are they?
Because overall.
What are they?
Yeah, overall, there's a general assurance that revenue to the airport cannot be diverted, and so I think that's one aspect of the program that we have to abide by. And revenue diverting meaning if you're providing incentives, it has to be, of course, provided across the board similarly, right? And so what we've seen is that increased frequency using that carve out, we've provided a certain incentive for flights that are from new destinations. That is a higher incentive, a new route from a new city. And so we've been applying them consistently across the program.
But when you come up with up to 50%, does the FAA have to approve that? Is there a formula that they say you have to fit in, or they allow you to do any random number?
The board could have approved up to 25%, and then we would be limited to 25.
Yeah,
and
I'm asking, of course, but does the FAA have to approve what the board approves?
No.
No, so that's the board's total discretion.
They could also look back to see, of course, they always have the opportunity, compliance division can look back and see what has been done. And so that's why we have to comply up front with the provisions. In any of the assurances.
You mean applying them without discrimination?
Yes.
But the amounts, no restriction?
Yeah, I mean, if.
Right? Is that correct? All right, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Senator. Senator Gilbertata? No? Okay. Senator Chalai? I'm sorry, technically?
I know.
Sorry about that.
We're wearing the same color today. Trust me, we didn't have the memo. Which
My apologies.
So happened. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just moving on that, with regards to, all these airlines that are increasing the seat capacity coming to Guam, we have the three that you mentioned earlier, Korean Air, Jeju, and Jen Air, all taking advantage, or want to take advantage of this incentive, the 50% or whatever. Are they locked into July? Like, for instance, Korean Air is locked in from effective July 1st to December 31st. Has airlines ever pulled out, like, midstream on something they've, committed to? And if they take advantage of this, are they obligated to stick through the whole till July 1st to December 31st?
No, that's a really good question, and just kind of speaks to getting an understanding, right, of, I guess, how the airlines and how we think of airlines planning. They do plan long in advance for these seasonal routes. And so, we've asked the question, what will it take for you to continue after October 25th? What will it take for you to continue after so-and-so? And so oftentimes, really, it depends on the load factor, meaning how many people are in the plane and so forth. Have we seen them not complete a scheduled flight? Not that I'm aware of, because of course these are all scheduled in advance, and so people are booking flights. There might be maybe operational issues that might cancel flights that are unscheduled, but for the most part, the commitment has always been there, and of course the airport's taking them in as they come. So
it is kind of rare for them to pull out, not fulfill their obligations. Yeah, it makes sense because of the booking concern, but in the event they do these, do you tie these incentives based on this timeline? Or do you, they've already given you this timeline from July to December, and if you want to, like you said, ask them to go even further, wouldn't you want to put the incentives after that timeline?
Yeah, we have an application process, of course, and so the airlines would apply. That would be the first step, and then of course the determination provided thereafter. So as their applications come in for these kind of seasonal flights, then those are reviewed and then provided an answer to.
Okay, well, thank you for that answer. And Brian, I hope you said you had these documents to show how you came up with 50% and these numbers. So the board had this process in place and looked at and evaluated these numbers to come up with the 50% is what you're saying. And if you do, you have that documentation?
So we approved a program which set up to 50%. I don't know the numbers off the top of my head, but we'll provide you the information.
Okay, so it was, okay, I'm looking forward to seeing those numbers, how it came up to 50. Okay, other than that, thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Senator Lai.
Thank you, Senator.
Can you sit over here?
All right.
Sit over here next to me so
we
I
can
get it right. Thank you very much. Thank you.
We can go back on to the PowerPoint slide, please. All right, so moving on, next slide. So the next topic is the airport security, and I'd like our airport police chief to give this report.
Okay, good afternoon, Chair, Vice, distinguished member of this committee. I want to first thank the individual who adjusted the temperature in this room. Yeah, it was freezing earlier. Thank you. Yeah, otherwise you would have thought I was really nervous. I'm nervous, but I don't want to be really nervous. So, the other thing going forward is I do understand that aviation working screening, but in order to understand a little bit about the new implementation, I think you need to know a little bit about the history of it. And so, if I may, the Airport Security Program, ASP, is a detailed TSA-approved document that sets out the security measures, procedures, and responsibility an airport must implement to protect passengers, employees, aircraft, and airport facilities from threats such as terrorism, hijacking, and other unlawful interference. The ASP outlines how the airport will comply with federal aviation security regulations, primarily 49 CFR Part 1542 for airports, under the Transportation Security Administration, TSA. Key changes after 9/11. TSA assumed responsibility for approving, inspecting, and enforcing Guam's ASP and across the nation. Airport operators were required to update their ASP to align with the new TSA security directives and threat levels. Screening of all checked baggage and 100% passenger screening became mandatory. New layers of security, like federal air marshals, reinforced cockpit doors, were integrated along with our Guam ASP. So while the ASP existed pre-9/11, and that was during FAA's time, they were significantly strengthened and federally standardized in the months following the attacks to close security gaps and create consistent national aviation security system. Now on to this new amendment, the aviation worker screening. So this amendment was to tackle like insider threat that we're dealing with across the nation. So it's become a #1 priority across the nation today. And so as of June of 2024, Guam was found to be in the top 4% of all Category 1 airports, and then top 9% of all airports nationwide were assessed for full implementation of TSA National Amendment 23-02. Their metrics ever changing, however, it is truly a distinguished feat that Guam was able to effectuate full aviation worker screening as a leader not only in the Pacific, but as a leader across the country. There's also of particular note that Guam was one of the first airports in this region, which would include Hawaii, American Samoa, CNMI, to actually fully implement. Now, we need to remember that this is actually an unfunded mandate. So the airport, the authority, would have to come up with the additional manpower to actually do this screening. So the airport division also has established an APD aviation worker screening curriculum and aviation worker screening training record in accordance with the TSA National Amendment 32-02. The Airport Police Division is in the process of procuring an advanced explosive handheld detection in accordance with TSA National Amendment 3202. So what that actually really means is other than the checkpoint itself where everybody must go through, the doors that we're actually screening are the doors that our workers go through to our secured areas. And so having a device like this, like how TSA has, you can literally rub their hands and then put it through a machine and then figure out whether or not they tested positive for any type of explosive. And so the other caveat, the other requirement that we put in is, as you see in the picture above, is our K9, our TSA K9 units. So moving forward, the other mandate was our K9 TSA inspection of our K9 units. Once again, before, that was actually partially funded. And I think the past 2 years, with the last administration into this administration, it's not funded. So the funding comes from the airport itself. So each handler, each team, usually funds around 50, 55,000, give or take. That was an estimate, but for each K9 handler, we actually had 5 teams. We're down to 4 currently. And so that's because the lack of funding. The big, beautiful bill, it's over 900 pages. I'm still reading through it. Not sure if TSA is getting fully funded this year. So once again, the airport's tasked to fund this mandate again. So with the K9 teams, the unit passed its annual evaluation on March of this year. An annual evaluation is conducted by TSA, who federally certifies our K9 units. And I told you we had 4. The federal certification is recognized throughout the U.S. territories and the airport, all the airports. We are currently working on an OTA. It's our other transaction agreement, which will allow TSA to partially fund the unit again. And additional funding source would greatly be appreciated. But like I said, I do not know the contents of the big, beautiful bill, so hopefully that'd be time to read and look into the matter. According to our TSA counterparts, they have yet to receive any notification that we are going to get funded again. And then finally, in our technology area, the Guam Airport Police Division's AI program, and this speaks to your bill, and so we are for it, and so we're kind of leading the development of artificial intelligence for police report writing, with testing currently underway. So I think we're in our 3rd month currently. And so the AI technology is a web-based program developed by policereports.ai. It enables officers to record audio description of events on cases while in the field. From there, they can either immediately generate reports from the provided transcription or later upload these recordings into the system, which generates a structured draft report. Additionally, the airport police forms can also be generated from the official generated narratives, which also reduce the duplicate administrative tasks on our officers. The report remains fully under human control, allowing officers to review, edit, and make necessary changes to ensure accuracy and completeness. By utilizing AI, we will enhance transparency and allow us to conduct a thorough cost-benefit analysis and overtime savings, particularly in measuring the time saved on police administrative reports. Completing reports more proficiently will allow officers to return to their posts or out into the field quicker, ensuring stronger uniform presence within the terminal, or moving forward with the other administrative projects and/or protocols and patrols. So I did skip one, and I apologize. My staff told me to increase my font, and I told them it wasn't necessary. Obviously, they're going to be telling me it was necessary. So I did skip over online CETA badge processing. I'll touch on that really quickly. And so the Guam Online Security Identification Display is our CETA badge application process. We're kind of in our final stages before a 60-day implementation plan, and handling over 3,800 to 4,000 badge applicants annually. So establishing online protocols, GIA admin authorized sponsor and applicants for CETA application online submittals. Files are stored at a GIA server for cybersecurity protection. Online scheduling is now in effect, so you can go online. It's a lot easier. It's a lot easier for some of our pilots and their crew, because when they're flying, usually at night or early mornings, our offices are open and they're probably sleeping or they're probably gone. So the online scheduling is actually a benefit for them. It costs cost savings for filing, scanning, and shredding of documents, which is also mandated by TSA. So it takes away that because it's already in the server. Okay, improvement of customer service experience and regards to wait times and lines. So if you ever made your way to the airport, you're going to see by our badging area, you get about I want to say 30 to 40 people at a time. This online process will actually cut down the amount of time that individual would have to stay there, and they can do everything from their computer at home. Okay, so I have nothing further, and this may be subject to your questions.
Thank you, Chief. Chief, a couple questions. Where does airport police jurisdiction start and stop, and compared to, arriving and departing passengers, in regards to, say, where does it start and stop when compared to, say, TSA, CQA, and maybe even immigration? Right. Say somebody comes in and clears customs and quarantine, and they're out, getting ready to take a taxi or whatever like that, and you have canines, right?
Yes, we do.
Yes, okay. And say your dog sniffs, potential drugs in their bag or something like that, sits by the bag. You're subjected to probable cause, right? Or is that still fall under CQA if they happen to pass CQA already? So where does your jurisdiction start and stop?
So the jurisdiction at the airport is also with us. With customs and quarantine, once they enter their area, we have an understanding. We just don't touch them. We let customs and quarantine take care of like the canine handling for sniffing of agricultural products or even narcotics. Outside of that area, we actually pick it up. But we also have to remember that on a federal side of things, HSI has brought forward what they call BEST, Border Enforcement Security Team, which has one of our TFOs from the airport police that's on that team, which allows for departure and arrivals. So if we wanted to do like a joint jurisdictional case, usually that would be handled on a federal level. If you're going to include like the airport police, but anything on the departure side, with passengers bringing their bags in, it's usually the airport police. Anything within the customs inspection area, we yield and we allow customs and quarantine to do their job.
Given the recent, of course, national aviation incidents and all that, but not just national, but we've seen the international incidents and all that, have any of the operations are we in compliant then, or have we looked at the safety measures that may have or are in place that maybe shouldn't be and replaced by something else? Like for example, that airline that again overran the runway and ran into again a wall pretty much. I mean, we're not there. I know we're not. But have any of these incidents that have happened required us to look at the way we run our airport and the safety measures?
Well, as far as safety is concerned, sir, the ATM is the next victim up. So I'll leave that for him to answer. Okay. But as far as that is concerned, he's got that handled. Okay. If you're asking for anything that dealt with security in the recent years, I would say, we've been stepping up our security posture to address, what's happening in the world today. And so, we do we did bring upon a new unit. So in case someone, whether it's an insider threat or somebody coming from the outside in, we do have tactical tracking dogs that upon breach, our dogs get deployed and, we can immediately respond. We have put in for grants to include drones to help us with our perimeter. And then, of course, my counterparts are, working on figuring out the perimeter and the gate. As you saw in the capital improvement projects, the AOA gate, the Air Operations Area gate, was something that needed to be addressed and become more modern. And so today, with the draft approvals, we're hoping to get that underway, so to be a modern gate with technology to be desired.
Mm-hmm. In regards to your personnel, how many men, women strong are you guys at this point? And are they all police? Or are they some security?
So we have sworn officers, and we do have our limited term security guards. Mm-hmm. However, just like everybody else in other agencies and law enforcement, we share the same burden. We do more with less. And I think the last time I was sitting here, Senator Tadigui asked me what a number would be to get me up to speed and where it should. Well, I think my answer then was 21. My answer today is still 21. But as far as how we posture, I think the airport is secured, and we're doing the best we can with what we have, given the resources we have.
Mm-hmm. Okay. There's increased military exercises happening, and we see it and hear it as well. Has it impacted any of the emergency response? I'm not sure this is coordinated way ahead of time, but what does that do with your commercial flights as well? I mean, is it coordinated ahead of time so it doesn't impede in the commercial airlines coming in?
Once again, that's a air terminal manager question, but as far as security, we've met months prior to this exercise. As far as the security portion of it, there's no disruption. We don't get people on that side trying to, really take pictures, of the aircrafts. And so we had, roving patrols on that side to deal with it. But so far, it's been good.
Okay.
And then, of course, on the operations side that you're going to hear, that's actually gone smooth as well.
Yeah, and I'm sure you'll cover this as well, because my next question is in regards to your annual FAA certification inspection.
Oh, yeah, that'd be
okay.
Mr. ATM right next to me.
He keeps yielding everything to me, Chairman.
Okay, no real problem.
Yeah, a lot of questions coming this way. I was like, okay, that's all right. I mean, I'm willing to.
Just FYI, Senator, on the when we talk about security, whenever we do have military operations like Reef Pack that's going on right now, one of the requirements is that we have the Air Force, like now, Air Force security forces that's there to make sure that they secure all their assets that are there. So they have 24/7 security forces, folks that are stationed there, making sure that their assets are protected.
Okay. I mean, and when their assets are protected, I mean, they're not just on where they park their planes, right? I mean, it's the whole airport. I'm sure that
That's right.
Secure, right?
Right.
Yeah.
They're securing the whole perimeter of. We call it the play box.
Okay.
And that's what they are. They're entitled to.
Okay. Senator Duenas. Okay. Senator Guptato.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair, and thanks, Vince, for your presentation. I think with the mandates that you presented today, it needs people, but it also needs to make sure that they're compensated. Can you, for the record, tell us? I know that the Post is actually trying to do the force structure plan. They're looking at January to kind of get it done in terms of compensation for law enforcement. How are you guys part of that, and is your security team part of that as well?
Thank you for the question, Senator. So the Post Commission is currently in discussions with that core structure. However, just like we're not part of the Hay Plan anymore, and so we're on the Certified Technical Professional Pay Scale, which finally brought us over, after years of trying to get there. As far as the structure and how that's going to play out, I can't really comment on that right now because I haven't been a lot of discussions on it.
Yeah, and why I ask, as with your board here, is if there's going to be that push. I mean, you have mandate that you're trying to get done. I'm hoping that the board will see it reasonable to increase the pay scales of your people. I mean, by January, we're going to see the entirety of the public safety groups on Guam all going to be lifted up at some point. And so that's why I asked this question now, because I know that it's not just you, fire as well, the ARF teams as well, that will be in the same boat. And I just wanted, because I know he's still here and his wife hasn't divorced me yet, but I just wanted to check, if I could, in the airport improvement program, it lists and I saw the apron construction, but there is a push for the construction of an ARF building. It wasn't on there. Is there a reason why that 2023 funded program is not part of this list?
The new art facility has been constructed and in operation.
Okay, so then, but you were saying 2 years. But it's completely done now, and it's still showing here on the FAA's site, and then nothing for 25.
On the FAA site.
Yeah, on the FAA site for that particular program.
Unless you're talking about their training and operations.
No, I'm just looking at the airport improvement program. So I'm just wanting to make sure that I'm not missing something. I pretty much watched the whole building not get constructed.
Yeah, the dollars that or grants that were set aside for the art facility has been utilized already.
Right, and then 25, there's nothing listed for Guam right now, right?
Right.
And so then we won't know until the end of this fiscal year?
The only work that needs to be done with ARF is some of the damages that occurred as a result of Typhoon Mawar.
Which is still insurance related, right?
Yes, or FEMA.
Or FEMA related.
And it's in regards to their HVAC system as well as their roll-up doors.
Okay, yeah, it seems like the HVAC system is becoming a common thread in this particular budget process. But I mean, but again, going back to it, there's mandates that need to be done. So I'm hoping that the board will see it fit that when we think about our firefighters and our police at the airport, that, you know, in terms of what they're going to see a lot happening, and they're going to come back saying, hey, why not us? So I'm hoping that you guys would see it fit. Doyan, and I just saw your other board members. I'm hoping that they'll see it fit to get these guys where they need to be. That's all I got, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Gumataldo. Senator Terlai.
Thank you. Very quickly, just the canines, are they, you said they're for they have tactical tracking, but they don't overlap with the customs duties, but they are looking for drugs also?
Yeah, so...
in agriculture?
So notwithstanding our canine explosive unit that we have, the 4 teams, we have 2 canine that are narcotic and tracking. So they're dual purpose canines.
Oh, okay. So
Yeah.
still 4 teams total.
Right, and so
Okay.
the canines are used on our departure side and then on our patrol side.
All right. Have they ever found anything?
Yeah, they're probably gonna, be mad at me for saying it, but I think to date, since we've been operational, we've probably got about over 39 pounds of crystal methamphetamine. Yeah, so it's a good number for us. I mean, we also do help with the U.S. and Postal Inspectors and then the Drug Enforcement Agency.
So is that included in the 39 or 39 in the airport facility?
Yeah, what we found.
Okay.
Yeah.
39 like incidents?
39 pounds.
Pounds. How many incidences?
How many incidents?
Yeah.
So operationally, I believe there were like cases in this past couple of years, maybe around 14, 12 to 14.
All right. Well, I'm glad you're finding and you're doing that. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Go next.
No, he answered it.
Okay.
The chief
No,
answered
in
it.
regards to the next.
We're going to the next. Thank you, Senator. If we go to the PowerPoint, I think we're going to go into airport cybersecurity, and I have our deputy executive manager cover this.
Thank you, Mr. EM. Just real quickly on this one, airport cybersecurity. So, of course, cybersecurity has been really important, especially for critical infrastructure. And so the TSA has noticed that, of course, as well. And we've been getting a lot of visits from TSA to ensure that we comply with this TSA emergency amendment that they included as of March 7th, 2023. This requires that the TSA regulated airports, which includes the Guam International Airport Authority, has identification and classification of the critical IT and operation technology systems, that we have a cybersecurity implementation plan, and then an annual cybersecurity assessment program. So this is a new requirement from TSA, and it's interesting. TSA has separated themselves. You have the TSA airport requirements, and then they have an entirely new team for TSA cyber that has really nothing to do with physical security, really more on the cyber side. And so the reason why TSA, of course, issued this, it might be common sense, but rising cyber threats have been a concern in and around the airport. There have been numerous reports in airports nationally of cyber incidents. And so intelligence and recent incidents have shown that the airports face serious cyber risks to critical systems. And we have identified internally what those critical systems are based on our experience, based on the type of technology that we have. Of course, it's a national security concern, and so TSA and other oversight boards have declared cybersecurity emergency across the entire aviation sector. And then, of course, urgent action is definitely needed. Immediate protections to our network segmentation, access control, threat detection, and then also other systems. And so if I can just move to the next slide. So what are the actions that we have taken? And so, of course, the airport has gone through ensuring that we establish the plans that are required by this TSA emergency amendment. We've included, of course, cybersecurity incident response. So you'll hear from Juan about some of the emergency response. On the other side, on cyber side, there's an incident response if there are cyber attacks, such as I won't say exactly which ones, but and then having our cybersecurity assessment program, which is a TSA review that we've been working with them on, I think, multiple times this year. to see if we're on track with our cybersecurity implementation program. And so what are some of the things that we've been doing to practice what this plan provides? We've had tabletop exercises with airport stakeholders and regulatory partners as we build our plan that's internal to the airport authority, but also all of the, Chief mentioned there's 3,000 to 4,000 people that have a badge that work at the airport in many different capacities. And so making sure that we talk with our stakeholders on what our plans are, without, of course, giving sensitive security information, but also just to let them know that there is a plan, that what their plans are, so that we can ensure that we're aligned in any situation where communication is going to be key if there's any cyber incident. We've also held 2 tabletop exercises, December 2023 and November 2024. I won't give you the examples that we used during those, but of course they were to ensure that the critical infrastructure, the critical systems that we identified internally were tested and across the different stakeholders in the airport, including internally. We've been working really closely with a lot of the federal partners, so CISA, FBI. We've also been working with the Department of Defense as it relates to some of their the opportunities they have to help us in terms of software, guidance, systems, and so forth. And so we've been working with all those federal agencies, testing our system, seeing if they can, get into it, and so forth. And our team has been very flexible because, we have our team that you can't just put an IT person and have them do cybersecurity. But we've been able to do that. But we've also hired an individual that is going to be focused on this entire program who has cybersecurity background. And so we've been able to onboard him and have been ensuring that he's up to speed on some of the requirements of TSA. But this is a new thing, and it's just wanted to bring it up under the security section just because it's an important new program that has been successful. And the last assessment that we had from TSA showed marked improvement from last year. Significant improvement, really good, kudos to our team that has been able to create this implementation plan, have met the milestones, and have continued to work on it to ensure that it meets the standards that TSA is requiring. But also just knowing that TSA is also a partner in this. So if there are vulnerabilities, they're there to help us and work with us through those issues. So there's some here. We've engaged with CISA vulnerability assessment we performed in November. We had some FBI engagement. We'll leave it at that. At February 2025, just discussions with the FBI in terms of what opportunities they have, what support systems they have in case there is an incident, and so forth. So these are just some of the updates we have under airport cybersecurity.
Just one thing to add, Senator. We did bring in some trainers from the Utah National Laboratory, and we opened it up. Idaho, I'm sorry. Idaho National Laboratory, and we opened it up to not only our airport, but the other airports in the region and other entities in the government of Guam. And so we did that. Usually they have like 30 participants. In this training, they're so impressed. We had like over 80 participants from all over the island and the other regions here on Guam. So we're taking cybersecurity very seriously in as far as our operations is concerned.
Now let me ask, because Chief Deputy had mentioned that to augment their security measures, they also used drone technology as well, right? What restrictions do you guys place on drone users that may be flying their drones around the airport or the radius from the airport? Are there restrictions? And yeah, how's that?
There is, but our air terminal manager can answer that better.
And actually, we can go to the next.
Yes, we can.
Yeah.
And he'll cover it.
They're all referring to me anyways.
Yeah, got it. Okay.
All right, if we can go to the next slide, please. All right, our airport operations, safety, and emergency preparedness, and our air terminal manager, Mr. Juan Regis, will cover this. He is our person that keeps our airport open 24/7 and making sure that it's safe and secure.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Yim. Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee. Juan Regis, Air Terminal Manager. So since they all were deferring to me, I'll kind of keep it in the backpack of my memory here before I go through the rest of my presentation. But I'll go ahead and get to your answer regarding the drones, unless you want to hear it now. Okay. Okay, so as mentioned, my presentation here is going to be pretty much on our airport certification manual. Oh, correction. Okay, apologize for that. Okay, my presentation is pretty much going to be on specific items as it relates to overall operations at the airport, which I have oversight of. So we'll start out with obviously every U.S. airport. The 548 plus airports throughout the United States are required to have an operating certificate. So in order to have an operating certificate, you have to have a combination of FAA-approved certification manual, to which is really your processes and protocols that must be adhered to at a minimum to ensure compliance to operate safely at a U.S. airport, such as Guam's airport as a territory. So nonetheless, we had our certification manual most updated as recent as January of this year. So airport certification manuals have a combination of other subsections to them, which includes wildlife hazard management plans. It includes the airport emergency plan. And then it also includes now, what I'll get into here shortly, is the safety management system aspect, which is a newly mandated program directed by the FAA. So those are all contents of the certification manual. So every year, as you mentioned, the FAA inspection, I'll get to that in a minute here. But with regard to the significance and importance of the airport certification manual is, it's really an extension of 14 CFR Part 139, which is the regulatory guidance for compliance. So with our airport certification manual, given there's 548 plus airports, not all with the same footprint, requires certain kind of geography and geometry and language to be able to put into that certification manual for us to be able to meet the compliance with the given resources in our geographical area, given our challenges. So with that, pretty much is really to be sure that we're able to maintain safety, security, and certification 24/7, just as it would be with our airport security and our aircraft rescue firefighting. So that's pretty much it in a nutshell as far as our airport certification manual. And then we move on to what you had inquired earlier with regard to your hearing FAA inspection going on currently. And by coincidence with this public hearing and how it was scheduled, yes, we do. We're currently into day 3 of our 4-day inspection. And again, the inspection has its own significance in and of its own self, because again, we're talking about over 125 areas of inspection items that are going to be processed throughout this inspection process that's going on and currently taking place right now. That it currently also involves over 3,000 documents with regard to records, programs, and certification and training of personnel. So in the last 3 days, I kind of haven't slept for almost 2 hours because of the fact we're kind of jumping around. But nonetheless, we are looking pretty good as far as what I understand today. The inspectors will come in, or had came in and started inspection day before yesterday, roughly around 9 o'clock, and had gone through pretty much all our ARF programs. So our ARF program encompasses being inspected, or having the vehicles inspected 100%, all 4 vehicles, and that includes discharge of water, agent, pretty much what equipment they have on board, medical triage equipment inventory, and of course their live fire training, in addition to other hose, nozzles, turret training, amongst others. So it was pretty tedious task for the inspector to actually go through all those programs, and that took him pretty much almost a day, and then he had to carry over this morning to get back to the rest of what needed to be done. So a combination of having been done during daylight hours at the ARP station was our airfield day inspection and night inspection. So it's unusual that he did a back-to-back inspection, because typically it would be strictly a dedicated day inspection for one session, and then a separate session to do a night inspection. Our inspector chose to do a back-to-back day, so we started out at 5 o'clock prior to the Honolulu flight coming in. So the airfield inspection encompasses our 2 runways, runway 6 left, 24 right, and runway 6 right, 24 left. And we're talking 6 right, 24 left is 10,000 feet. 6 right, or 6 left, 24 right is 12,000 feet. So that was a lot of ground to cover. So we were able to get it completed with regard to all the components and equipment and devices on the airfield that needed to be inspected for noncompliance. So as a good example of last night's results was, we currently have between runway edge lights, taxiway edge lights, signage, markings, and obstruction lights within the airfield and the movement areas, at least over 1,000 light fixtures. We had 0 findings with regard to unlighted lighting fixtures. So that's a milestone in itself. So that speaks to our self-inspectors. We have a total of 9 self-inspectors who are pretty much similar to an FAA inspector to some extent, with local training and certification, and the training received by AAAE and ACI as well. So we have a total of 9 in-house, including myself as one of the self-inspectors. So certified, qualified personnel such as aircraft rescue firefighting and airport police. Ops is no different. We go through a series of training that's required, mandated by FAA, that we go through a discipline of 7 areas, which is notice to airmen, issuance, and of course, cancellations. We go to wildlife hazard management training, driver training in the movement area. We also do self-inspector technique, tactics as to what it is we're looking for on the airfield. A good example would be, and again, it could be as small as, what do we do when there are 2 runway lights that are unlit in a row on any given runway? Do we shut it down? Do we close it in the event we can't get it repaired? So those are the kind of things that our guys get trained on with regard to how do you react to any unknown non-compliant condition out there. So a good example would be if we ran into a problem out there where it was pretty severe, say for example at the approach end of runway 6 left, where we went out and did our required self-inspection and found, say for example, a crack deeper than 3 inches, wider than 5 inches, that's a non-compliant condition. So immediately once our self-inspectors detect that, they got to do one of 3 things. They got to either limit air carrier operations or restrict air carrier operations, or close that surface that the aircraft operates on. So that's how important it is for our self-inspectors to make sure that they're keen when conducting these types of inspections. So they too, during this self-inspection, are also being inspected. So the inspector themselves would sit in the back seat and monitor what our self-inspectors are detecting out there. So from what I heard last night, we did fairly well.
Now, let me ask you, when we have these shakers, these earthquakes, right? Now, at what point, I mean, do you inspect the runways again after every shaker that we have?
Yes. Yeah. So again, my team will probably hate me for this, but if they all looked at their cell phones, they're probably going to see almost a series of maybe 36 incidents that we had that prompted self-inspections over the past 12 months.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So that's for heavy weather, which is meteorological conditions that are unusual. Anytime construction is over, and of course we have construction going on right now in our apron areas. So at the end of every single day at 1700, we're doing a self-inspection.
Oh, okay.
And then of course, for any accidents, for any presence of wildlife, that's what prompts us to go out there and do a self-inspection. So we won't necessarily have to do a complete 100% inspection. It's called a conditional inspection, to where only that affected area will be inspected.
At one point in time, you guys were firing off some firecracker things because you had
pyrotechnics, if you will.
some birds,
yes.
right, or something like
so
that?
So that was part of our USDA program, where they have 3 methods of alleviating wildlife hazards whenever they are present. And that is the requirement, verbatim.
Okay.
So we would contact USDA, they would come out there, and they use 3 methods of alleviating wildlife. They'll use either poppers and screamers to disperse them, even by way of their vehicle horn, sirens, whatever they may be equipped with. And of course, the last chance would be to actually shoot them with live rounds, which typically would be a .22. So just as an example, again, sorry, Frank, I know we got to get you out here. I saw my clock before I started. I'm at the trailing edge, and so we did encounter a wild boar over Liberation Weekend. So it actually made its way from across the street over and into the cargo building parking lot confines. And you can see how narrow that is to some extent, right? Once that wild pig got in there, it didn't know how to get out. Given the size and nature of the wild pig, which was probably 30 years old with a tusk of maybe 4 inches long, posed as a safety hazard. and of course, a potential initiator of property damage, and the worst case scenario would be bodily harm. So our airport police, our operations, and our USDA folks went out there and tried to kind of guide it out of the parking lot to the extent where it started to go array on them, meaning charging them, probably potentially damaging the vehicle, bodily harm to them if they got out of their vehicle. So we had no other ultimatum but for USDA to take it down. Okay. But of course, there's procedures prior to discharging a firearm on and around an airport. So we had, of course, TSA notified, airport police was present, ops was present, and then, of course, USDA did their thing when they had that shot that it was to be safe. So
I guess that board wanted to relocate to greener pastures as well, right? Looking to hitch a ride somewhere.
Yes, but the good thing is after it was taken down, it was actually, we weren't able to get a hold of any mayor's office because obviously during Liberation, they were all at Liberation.
So you didn't bring it down
no.
here and roast it?
but we did give it to the Filipino association that was willing and able to come and pick it up. So it didn't go to waste.
So who got the tusk then? Who got the?
Oh, they have it now. So yeah. Okay. So moving on, full-scale exercise. So with regard to full-scale exercises, again, FAA mandates that we conduct a full-scale exercise once every 3 years. 36 calendar months is what the FAA calls it, but we call it 3 years. So with regard to our full-scale exercise, it's really a planned exercise, meaning to mobilize really real-world assets to a given scenario. So our last triennial exercise we had was in November of 2023. So we have our next one coming up in November of 2026, which we're going to be working on immediately after our cert inspection is over. So last year's full-scale exercise really, it encompassed a pretty good scenario, one we had never done before in the past, which was really hijacking, a combination of a hijacking that occurred on board an aircraft 30 minutes out. During the approach into runway 6 left, the hijackers distracted the pilots to the extent where the pilots weren't able to concentrate and were having trouble with their landing gear. So as a result of it being a twofold incident response, because we really wanted to exercise law enforcement first, and then aircraft rescue and firefighting second, along with medical. So the hijacking aspect was taken care of by airport police on the first phase of the exercise. On the second stage, the aircraft came in, the terrorists took control, and the aircraft encountered a mechanical problem, landed, and prompted the aircraft to crash and come to final rest. So that's when the play comes out. That's where everybody rolls out. So hopefully we will have time for us to play that video right after I get through here, which is no time? Okay. So let me just kind of give a minute more to let you guys know more what a full scale would look like. So with regard to a full scale exercise, once we call it, again, the objective here is to demonstrate to the FAA that our airport is capable of responding to an incident of mass casualty, meaning that we take the largest aircraft index, which is an Index E. We're looking at least a minimum of 100 passengers, but we kind of work between the numbers of 100 to like 300 if we had to. So we obviously have to have, first of all, an actual scenario, what are our objectives based off of the scenario, and then a sequence of events. So sort of speak is a sequence of play. So once we activate it, and typically our full-scale exercise will go from 0800 to about 1200 for a complete play for every mutual aid partner to be able to roll out and exercise their particular pieces. Particular pieces meaning we're going to have GFD out there, we're going to have Fed Fire out there, GPD for traffic control, public health medical teams, we're going to have the aircraft rescue firefighting, we're going to have our airlines out there, TSA out there. So it's really a combination of response teams that are going to rush up to the airport, report to a staging area, and then the staging officer will be working in conjunction with our incident commander and our EOC with regard to what assets do we need up front. Because obviously we don't want to bring in all the assets and clutter up the place like Korean Air, the occurrence with Korean Air. So the responses and response apparatuses, they come in sequence of how they're needed. And then that's how it's being evaluated. So they'll evaluate. In our last exercise, we had the opportunity to do a really unusual operation. Our inject was we got Lakota to operate with us. So they came in and did an actual medvac of 2 military personnel to kind of keep the process of approval for that transport. So they kept it to just military personnel, which worked out well. So it showed their capability of being able to come into a given runway, a given taxiway intersection, and be able to retrieve victims and take them to Naval Hospital. So the lesson learned there for Lakota was they actually had to circle a couple times over Naval Hospital because they didn't have the frequencies, or they had the frequencies for Naval Hospital for incoming helicopter, but it wasn't being, I guess it wasn't being manned by Naval Hospital. So that was really a really good shortfall that was identified. So after circling, they went to their alternate mode of contacting USNH, which was pretty much handheld or a cell phone. And I was told it was both. They used a handheld and cell phone to get a hold of Lakota for Lakota headquarters to call Naval Hospital helicopter, inbound helicopter circling. So lessons learned there. So this is pretty much what the full-scale one tells us for what's going to go on. And then, of course, once that's complete, we do a hot wash, find out what our strengths were, what our shortfalls were, and then we document it, and it gets submitted to the FAA for review. So he's here right now looking at those records as well. In fact, he saw that this morning. Okay, so I'll keep moving on since there's not going to be a video. Obviously, we'll find some other time to be able to present that to you guys because it is really a big impact. With regard to the new mandate safety management system that also came our way.
Hold on, Mr. Chair, if I can I just ask a quick question?
Sure.
Staying with the side, you know, we're talking about the certification of the airport. Earlier, we mentioned that the pending FEMA projects, is that having any impact on the, especially on either our ARF or airport police side? Is that having any impact on the recertification process that you guys undergo, especially when it comes to preparedness?
Not that I'm aware of, and I could say that with confidence, primarily because once you interrupt any type of emergency response, particularly ARF, aircraft rescue firefighting vehicles, had Mawar damage one of the vehicles, then yes, that would probably be to your extent.
I mean, if it was like a Mawar damage to the ARF, would it have any impact on the certification process?
No. So the only thing, and a good example that I think you're seeking would be, we had damage to our ARF roll-up doors. So with regard to the damage to the ARF roll-up doors, until such time we can get a claim, whether it be FEMA, self-insurance, or FAA, or whoever, in the meantime, in order to maintain our ARF index, we got to make sure that we have a method of bringing our vehicles to be able to respond within 3 minutes out to the airfield.
So it's not having any impact, would have no impact on your certification?
No. So right now the roll-up doors are actually in the up and lock position. And the FAA is aware of that because of the project and coordinations that we do with Frank and the EDO.
All right, thank you.
Yes. Okay, so with regard to SMS, so SMS is something new that came about with airports. The FAA air traffic system within the line of business and FAA had it already done probably in 2017 along with flight standards and tech ops. So the FAA airports is the last one to get its SMS program up and running by virtue of mandate and insertion into the Part 139 since the final rule came out in 2022. So the airport, at least our Guam airport, we were subject to having to submit a implementation plan, which was a roadmap as to how will you stand your program up. So we were able to put our implementation plan together in short order of about maybe 6 months and had it reviewed by management and off to the FAA for their review and approval. We were the first within the entire region to include the state of Hawaii, Samoa, Midway, and of course, Sinai and others. So once we got our implementation plan approved in June of 2023, June of 2024, we were now subject to developing and establishing a safety system manual. So that safety system manual is similar to how I had just described the airport certification manual. So now what we have contained in our SMS manual is processes and protocols and procedures that we must adhere to. So in short order, it's about really being able to recognize hazards in advance before an incident or an accident occurs. So that's really the gist of all safety management system is catching a potential hazard up front before it becomes one. Okay, and moving on to runway safety. So runway safety is another, again, it's a process that GA undergoes as another aviation safety feature that is conducted every year. by a separate line of business within the FAA, which is the Runway Safety Office. So these folks are actually trained and are certified inspectors themselves on airports, and they come out every 12 months. And the last time they came out to our region, out here at least to Guam, and the CNMI was pre-COVID, back in 2021. So next week, July 30th, would be the first time they'll be coming back out to do an on-site visit and a runway safety action surveillance with the Guam airport, which is a good combination, and timing is right for the simple reason that we're just going to be getting ready to complete our cert inspection when this team comes in. So it'll kind of balance itself out with what was found during our cert inspection and what we can potentially discuss, to improve as a result of both findings from the FAA certification side and from the runway safety action side. So that's a good thing. Then, of course, we have our airline operating committee that we work with, again, on a monthly basis or on an as-needed urgent basis. So the purpose really of this airline operating committee meeting that we do with our airline operators and regulatory stakeholders is to share ongoing projects. Thank you, Frank, for all 16 projects going on all at once. So it's a tough act to balance operations when you have that many projects going on at once. So this is an opportunity that we allow for our stakeholders and airlines to engage with us for any potential concerns that they may have for impacts with regard to day-to-day operations. And that's been very successful. We do more than just monthly communications with our tenant stakeholders. We kind of do in a form of bi-monthly in some cases, if not weekly, and by sense of urgency, depending on what the project is. Okay, moving on to tabletop exercises, and that was kind of what the Deputy was talking about with regard to cybersecurity. So again, these tabletop exercises are pretty much a planned exercise that can eventually lead up to a full-scale exercise. So it's really a tool, so to speak, for emergency responders to sit down, get together, get to know each other's duties and responsibilities. So the FAA recently mandated us through Policy Guidance 118, given all the incidents and accidents happening nationwide, which we all know the helicopter collided Newark with a commercial air carrier. Unfortunately, that had to have been in a body of water. And then, of course, there were a couple incidents also involved in the nation within the past 6 months that also included an incident accident in a body of water. So that prompted the FAA headquarters to do a call to action, so to speak. So they came out with Policy Guidance 118 for all Part 139 airports to execute, at a minimum, a water rescue focused meeting. So we went above a focused meeting and did a no-notice tabletop exercise with all our partners, which all our partners included Homeland Security, Civil Defense, the Coast Guard, Navy, Air Force, GFD, GPD, Public Health, the Port Authority, Federal FAA, Air Traffic Control Tower, and private public partners such as Salvation Army, Red Cross, and so on. And that was actually, it proved itself successful. And that was held June of 2026. So that was just last month. So we met, again, we were the first in the region to meet that requirement as well amongst our regional airport partners. And then you had mentioned about the alternate, or the military refor pack operation that's currently going on, and what effects that could have on our normal day-to-day air carrier operations with regard to emergency response. So 3 months ago, we first heard of refor pack when most folks in the room here didn't even hear of it yet, because it was in its infancy with the fact that the planners from the Air Force and Joint Region Marianas were kind of getting a feel for where the play should be. And at the end of the day, they all decided, okay, we're going to use the Guam Airport as an area of interest for play. So 3 months ago, we actually started working with them well in advance to address any type of continuity of operations that's going to have to be addressed. And our priority in all this refor pack was primarily to ensure that no air carrier or general aviation operations were to be impacted. First and foremost, it was about our real-world continue operations at the airport. Second to the exercise, but we were definitely there 100% to support the exercise and still do to this day. So our operations here at the airport consists of 12 F-35 aircraft. We also had in the form of 10 transport aircrafts, C-17s, C-130s, and an Osprey. And the Osprey's been coming back and forth. They're primarily out of the aircraft carrier coming to and from Guam, the Guam airport. So as a result of all our planning up front, we've already been operating, and again, I hope I don't jinx myself or ourselves. So far, we've been operating without incident. So again, we're monitoring closely with all the aircraft coming in. Of course, EM deputy, myself, we've been fielding a good number of noise complaints, even after the result of the issuance of our press release. But that's to be expected. And again, out of professionalism, we give them the best, response we can give them. That we are in support of the exercise coming up. Given our geographical area with the real world known threats is, what we're to be proud of to have these folks exercising. Okay, so with regard to that, I'll move on. I'm almost there, Frank. I'm almost there. Trust me, buddy. Okay, so I'll just merge the two here, the last two items, which is divert airport and tech stops, because they're almost kind of the same, with the extent that for a divert airport, Guam also serves as a
Can we get the next slide, please?
Oh. Yeah, with regard to a divert airport, GI also serves as an alternate airport to which an aircraft is redirected when it cannot land at its intended destination due to unforeseen circumstances such as inclement weather, in-flight emergencies, medical, low fuel state, and others. So GIA, prior to air carrier, air cargo, and even the military in some cases, during their flight planning, they're already assessing a primary divert station and an alternate divert station. So as a good example, we had Jetstar 3 months ago that departed Taipei and was on its way to Brisbane. And they typically overfly Guam quite a bit. They overfly Guam probably almost daily with none of us even knowing. So at that point in time, they experienced an in-flight emergency. They had experienced a cracked windshield on the pilot side. So they came in, diverted into Guam, and then we kind of took care of them. So that's probably the best example I can give you of a divert. It could happen at any time, 24/7, and we have our fair share of diverts that we've responded to in the form of military and commercial. And then as far as tech stops, GI also serves as a tech stop, which is a brief unscheduled stop at any given airport during a flight, primarily for the aircraft requiring operational needs for common reasons such as refueling, crew changes, minor maintenance, or just addressing other operational needs such as a flight check. Then they'll come back around, land, and take off and head off to their destination. So again, tech stops are not unusual. We average probably monthly, I want to say maybe 16 tech stops a month in with various types of aircraft. So we can get, and a lot of them who've been coming through, a lot of you notice when you go through Route 10 Alpha coming through the airport, you see all these unidentified tail symbols. Those are primarily China Eastern. We have a couple others that are out there that are receiving new 737 MAX aircraft that are transiting through for delivery from Boeing. So a lot of times when you see those up there, particularly at gate number 13 through gates number 19, those are tech stops. So they're here for a tech stop, crew rest, remain overnight, and then the following morning they'll get up, fuel the aircraft, and then take off. So that's as basic as a tech stop can be. Okay, so with that, that concludes my presentation. Oh, the drone, yes. I'm glad EM reminded me about the drone. Okay, so as far as drones go, again, I'm so glad that the APD chief is next to me because he and I have a good habit of wanting to be the first at everything. So the FAA also mandated us about 1.5 years ago with regard to developing and establishing procedures and our response procedures to the presence of an unauthorized drone. So we had to look up the requirements and how that was going to be shaped with regard to how are we going to put this together. So we took the advisory circular that the FAA provided us and said, okay, this is what we need to do. We got to sit down and figure out how are we going to respond. It's kind of a touchy feeling because you got in the fence and out the fence. So obviously jurisdiction of airport employees are primarily on airport. So we kind of were able to sit down with the FBI. We sat down with TSA, GPD, Navy, Air Force, Airport Police, ourselves, CBP, and Guam Customs. So we took pretty much all the law enforcement shirts, and we all sat down and kind of started to massage a process. So in doing so, the FAA was also involved with ensuring we're not penalizing those who are authorized to operate drones. So they came out with, again, as I mentioned.
When you say not penalizing those authorized to operate drones, but because you have few operators that are qualified, but specifically around the area of the airport, okay? Because not all drone operators can operate. I mean, I know when I think they shut you down if you're up by their bases and everything, you try to fly it. I mean,
Yes,
yeah.
and I was getting to that, Chair. I was getting ready to get to that.
Okay.
Yeah, so the process is right now, so separate from the presence of an unauthorized drone, which we're going to respond to. And we're going to do one or two things, either take it down, persuade, or do what we got to do to get rid of it. But leading to your question now, for an authorized operation of a drone at an airport, it requires the operator to first be trained, licensed, and certified by the FAA. The drone device must be registered with the FAA. And then upon request to operate, for example, on Guam, and that Guam meaning on and around Guam. So they would have to process through flight standards and air traffic for a predetermined airspace that they're going to utilize. So we have two vendors at the Guam airport that do and Bella Wings is one of them. They come out and do work for the airport, at least aerial work for the airport. So they submit all their paperwork. Their staff and their pilots are certified, licensed, recognized by the FAA. The drone device is registered, so now it's a matter of coordinating. So once we coordinate the given area, altitude, and all the longitude, the height, airspeed they're going to be going at, and the intent of what the drone is going to be doing. Are you going to be taking photos? Are you going to be dropping stuff off? Are you going to be doing whatever the nature of what that operation is going to look like? So at the end of the day, the FAA has the final say on what's called the COA, the Certificate of Authorization. So once the operator submits that certificate of authorization to the given air tower where they're going to be operating on or near, then that's where the process starts with the Guam airport. So then they come over to the Guam airport and they share, okay, we have the drone operator who's authorized, who's been vetted, who has the COA, and Juan, this is where he wants to operate. He wants to operate just slightly 1 mile north of the airport to do real estate aerial services. So that's a legit service. We're good. We're not going to respond when somebody calls and says, hey, there's a drone 1 mile north of the runway that poses as a hazard. We already know that drone is there, and that's the process. So once that operation is done, we already know how long it's going to take. We know what time it's going to return to origin. So sometimes they can launch it. It doesn't have to be necessarily launched at the airport. It can be launched off the airport, but again, operating on and around the airport. So in the case of that hobbyist who did the Marine Corps BLAS intrusion with a drone, obviously wasn't too aware of the processes from what I gather and from what I was researching as to how that happened. So yeah, but that's definitely the process, good, bad, or otherwise, for the operators.
Thank you. Thank you very much. One other question regarding, maybe you're not want to answer this. This has to do with, again, working with DPW with this, right? Now, where are we at in regards to sidewalks coming from the airport on down leading to Marine Drive? Because just the other day, actually about 4:30 or so, right? This family, they must have just flown in, mother, father, two very young kids, and they were lugging their suitcases with them, okay? And the kids were holding on to the suitcases, basically. And they were right there on that area where there was a Y going up to the T-Gen and one going straight up, right? And they were right there, and traffic was very, very heavy. I mean, I know they were headed down towards Marine Drive and probably headed to, maybe their Airbnb. Now, I don't know if it's towards Tubon or the other way. But, at least once they get to Marine Drive, there's Marine Corps Drive or sidewalks. But where are we at in regards to the sidewalks that go down? Because it's just going to be a matter of time that somebody gets hurt or killed over there, and it doesn't matter. I've seen people lugging their suitcases at night as well, and there's some areas there that are not well lit. So where are we at in regards to DPW and the sidewalks that leading from the airport down to Marine Drive?
Senator, we've had that conversation with DPW. I know in as far as Route 10A, when they're going to improve that, sidewalks are definitely in the plans to be put in. As far as sidewalks now, I've made that request with DPW to see if we can put something there, at least temporarily until until they can get that Route 10A reconstruction done. Yes, I know we've seen the hazard. We've seen those folks. Matter of fact, there's several times that I've stopped to try and offer them a ride to where they're going so they can get out of that hazard area, but they refuse, right? But yes, I've brought it up with DPW. It's a discussion on as far as how can we make that more safe for them. And so it's ongoing. That discussion is ongoing. But we've brought it up as a hazard that we need to address as soon as possible.
Because actually we're working as well alongside, of course, the Guam Visitors Bureau, GHRA, and also because I have oversight of GRTA, and I'm sure the acting manager or general manager now of Ibanez, I think it is, with GRTA. I'm sure that she will take up. I'm yet to meet with her, but in the previous manager, they were working on some kind of transportation, public transportation from the airport, you know, on frequency basis, basically, and most especially working with you guys in regards to when flights come in or when they depart. So I hope to resume that. That conversation with the new or the acting general manager or director of GRTA, because we were working closely with Mr. Uggan at the time, and I know that was again something that we were working on, and so like I said, I'll be meeting with Sabanas to further that discussion and hopefully expedite that while we're working on the sidewalk situation as well. Yeah. Okay. Senator Matalo, anything else? Senator Lai? Yeah.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Regis, for keeping us safe and all your hard work. Really appreciate it. And as you said, we've had no incidents, so I'm knocking on this table. Thank you. I just have questions regarding this divert or alternate military support facility, or maybe Director. Does the airport get any annual revenue for this or increased revenue during exercises?
The only revenue that we get is possibly from the ground handlers that are supporting that operations. But as far as any revenue coming out from the DOD doing it, we don't have enough exercises or operations that will trigger getting revenue from DOD because it's only on a seasonal thing that there's not enough activity that's going on for us to receive revenue. Indirectly, what we're getting out of, like for example, Re4PAC, is that we had our taxiways and our play box that was recently cleaned up with algae that we really needed to address, and so that operations was done by DOD, by the Air Force, without us spending any money on it.
All right. So that was DOD when they. I know they did an EIS and everything to make it an alternate facility and a divert airport, but so there was no deal.
We don't, but because we get federal funding from the FAA and stuff, those are part of what the requirements are to have that, is that we are a divert airport and also for military exercises.
Okay. And then, Mr. Regis, you said that there was an announcement made regarding these, like to expect the sound, and then you said there was the limits that were imposed were that no air carrier would be impacted. But were there any noise level restrictions? Are there any of those? Are there any like flight hours or path restrictions? Because I noticed they're going straight over the island. And several times a day during one of our memorial ceremonies, it was constant. So is there any kind of restriction? And that the announcement let everybody know to expect these increased noise levels on a constant basis like that?
Yes, in fact, that came in the form of 3 different disbursements. One particularly from DOD themselves, and then the other from the Guam International Airport, Mr. JQ, and the other from Joint Region Marianas. So it was a joint public release given at different times, and it did depict what the exercise and the operation was going to entail. So for the Guam Airport, it was pretty much 2-day flight sorties per day, and that was pretty much the operation.
Say that again, 2-day flights?
It was 2, but the trick is, it's called sorties. So you get, say for example, you have 8 F-35 fighters, and they're going to do 2 sorties. 4 aircraft can make up 1 sortie, and the other 4 aircraft will make up the second sortie. So they call it sorties in the military. So whether it's 1 aircraft or a batch of 4 or even a batch of 6, it's considered 1 sortie for a given mission. So the time frames they operated on, that's why they were lenient during our earlier planning discussion, was there was not going to be no night ops, after 1800. So that we obviously saw. It was evident that we don't really see them operating outside of those hours. The first time we'll hear them during the daylight hours is going to probably be as early as 8 o'clock.
Okay.
And then on through the last sortie, roughly around 1700, which is 5 o'clock in the afternoon.
Then I'm glad that you made an announcement. I just didn't see it then. That's
Yeah, there was 3.
okay. I saw the DOD announcements, but I'm looking for airport announcements.
Oh, it was out.
Yes, we did. We did put that out.
All right, thank you. Okay, that's it for that. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Senator Lai. Actually, at 6 o'clock, we have to recess so AV can reset. So that's like 9 minutes away. So we're going to take a 5-minute recess right now so they can reset and come back to our last topic, which is tenants and concessions. So we'll take a 5-minute recess.
Yes, sir.
So they can reset. And Frank, I know. I think you can be dismissed. Yeah, thank you. Right. Okay. Thanks.